Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Ian is here today. It is good to be back. Ian, hello.
What up, what up? Welcome back.
Thank you. I had a wonderful week off. We went down to Florida to go visit my grandmother, which, by the way, I have to say this. I actually told my 90-year-old grandmother, I said, I've been talking about you on the radio. She's like, what? I'm like, yeah. When I talk about this Bally Sports and about how you have spent, and we totaled it up, it was like $30,000. $30,000 of your money on the Florida Panthers, the Miami Heat, and the Miami Marlins, and you've never watched a game, talking about that kind of broken cable model. And I said, well, but then it went away because I thought she had Comcast. She doesn't. She has DirecTV. So she's still paying to watch the Marlins, the Heat, and the Panthers, and does not watch a single game. Speaking of the Florida Panthers, Game 7 of the Cup Final tonight, Barry Trotz might be joining us in the 3 o'clock hour. Predators general manager, he's traveling. They're getting ready for the draft, so we may have Barry at some point in the 3 o'clock hour. Big excited about that. Got a lot of hockey thoughts to get into, but I want to start on baseball. So this is going to sound crazy. I understand the job. I think, again, I don't like talking about myself like this, even though I'm sure a lot of you think that I do. But I understand the job of being a local radio host. It's not really about what I want to talk about. It's about what the town wants to talk about. And then after enough of a daily repetition of people hearing, my opinions about the things you care about, then it kind of intertwines with, I wonder what Jared's going to have to say about that. Craig Aukerman got fired. I have got to hear what Jared's got to say. And that's what we all hope as broadcasters happens. So I know that the topics that we pick, whether it's football, hockey, college football, SEC, whatever it may be, Titans, Preds, it's really about what you want to talk about. Now, lucky enough, for me, I grew up here. I love the Titans. I love the Predators. I grew up watching the SEC. I can do that, and I'm as passionate about it as you are. But yesterday, I watched the UT baseball game against Texas A&M. High drama, high stakes. They got a kid coming out of the bullpen throwing 100 miles an hour, and he can't even throw it straight, which makes it incredibly hard to hit. And yet at the same time, personally, I have a hard time caring about this Tennessee baseball national title. And I did not have a problem caring about Tennessee basketball when they were in the Elite Eight. I did not have a problem getting jazzed up or excited about Tennessee football when they beat Alabama a couple years ago and they were en route to the playoff. And instead, here I am tonight, knowing that more people in this audience care about the UT baseball game than care about Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. And yet, I'm angry that I'm not just going to be able to dedicate my full attention to Game 7 of the Cup Final. College baseball is not football. It's not college basketball. It's not men's college basketball. But in the same breath, let me say this. I appreciate how much tonight means to these Tennessee Volunteer fans. Because there are just some places in sports where winning matters more than others. I was listening to them talk in Boston last week after the Celtics won their 18th NBA title, and they said, it's one thing when some podunk town wins, but it matters more in Boston. Well, I would argue that when it comes to the University of Tennessee, it matters as much, if not more, to those fans as any other college in the country. Now, I'm not saying that it matters more to Tennessee than it matters to Alabama, or it matters more to Tennessee than it does LSU or even A&M tonight. But nobody cares more than Tennessee and Tennessee fans. And it matters to generations inside of a family. And I look at tonight as that kind of game. If you're under the age of 30, you don't remember Tennessee ever winning anything in sports. I mean, maybe you remember Pat Summitt, maybe. But even that was 16 years ago, the last time Pat Summitt won a title. And it's like my dad said. My dad is a Tennessee Volunteer hater through and through. I do wonder what he's going to watch tonight. My gut tells me hockey, but he may end up watching the baseball. My dad is a Tennessee hater through and through. And he said to me after they beat Alabama, he said, you know what? It's good that they won. Because, in his words, it makes hating them more fun. And that's the passion that Tennessee fans live with every day. I always talk about the fact that Tennessee is the one school that is unique in the fact that in the SEC, it is hated by every other SEC team. Vanderbilt hates Tennessee. South Carolina hates Tennessee. Ole Miss hates Tennessee. Florida hates Tennessee. Georgia hates Tennessee. South Carolina hates Tennessee. Mississippi State hates Tennessee. A&M hates Tennessee. You're not going to find South Carolina fans sitting there upset about Missouri. You're not going to find Florida fans over there complaining about Ole Miss. But everybody hates Tennessee. And the reason why everybody hates Tennessee is because of the irrational Vol fan base. It's a great fan base. And so when it comes to the college baseball game tonight, which I don't understand how it's not a pick'em. You know, both teams are going to be on their third starters, and A&M's had some injuries, and Tennessee's swinging the bats, but A&M has, I think, been the better team through the 2 games they've had so far. But I ask myself, do most people around the country care about Tennessee winning a baseball title? And I have to be honest and answer, not really. And again, I care more about the Cup final tonight than I do the baseball. And again, it's not like winning a baseball title is like winning a football title. Vanderbilt's won 2 baseball titles. It has not transformed that university into Notre Dame. And yet, you know, and I would also say this. I remember years ago, you know, back before liking Clay Travis made you pick a side, you know, back when it was okay to like Clay Travis one way or another. He was asked in his mailbag years ago about Atlanta FC, or that is the Atlanta team, right? Atlanta United, Ian, the soccer team?
Yep.
It's Atlanta United.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, got it right on the second guess. He was asked if winning a championship for Atlanta United would end this kind of Georgia streak of not being able to win. Now, obviously, since then, the Bulldogs have won 2 national titles in football. The Braves won a World Series. And, you know, Clay Travis has stopped doing his mailbag and has gone all in on right-wing politics. But these were simpler times. And he argued that Atlanta United winning an MLS Cup would be nice, but it wouldn't be the same as, say, the Braves, the Falcons, the Bulldogs, the Hawks. And he likened it to Tennessee women's basketball, saying, I'm a Tennessee fan. Would I be happy if Tennessee won a women's basketball title? Sure. But is it the same as football? No. Baseball and women's basketball, I think, are on the same footing when it comes to college athletics. Football first, men's basketball second, women's basketball, baseball tied for third. And yet at the same time, do not tell me that these Tennessee fans do not love this baseball team the same way they love their football team. Why? Because once again, winning matters to that fan base, and they don't do it very often. And because of that, they appreciate it. And because they value winning, because they are a win-at-all-cost university, we saw it on Shiano Sunday, I can appreciate it. It means more when you win a championship at Tennessee than I think it even means to win one at Michigan. I think it means more to win a title at Tennessee than it does at almost any other Power 5 school. And other schools, it's kind of the same. Now, as much as I get on Tennessee fans and laugh at the irrationality of the crazy stuff like taking Will Levis over Hendon Hooker is a slap in the face. Remember that one, Ian?
Sure.
That was embarrassing, by the way. That Tennessee fans said that, oh, yeah, the Titans spite us because they didn't take Hendon Hooker. I'm like, what? What? Or or the Titan fans that would root for Peyton Manning in the 2000s, or even the mattresses that burned when Lane Kiffin left. This is what makes it fun. I'm not going to lie to you. If it wasn't for the Tennessee fan base tonight, I'd have zero interest in this game at all. But guess what? I know that the Tennessee fans are either going to be elated tonight with a national championship, or they're going to burn the town down and Twitter out of anger, because that's what they do, because, again, it matters more to Tennessee. And so tonight, for you all, you Tennessee fans out there, even the crazies, I hope you get your moment. I really do. Because Tennessee fans over the years have been through a lot. It's been a lot. 16 years since Pat Summitt last won her last national championship. Sure, there was an Orange Bowl in there, but who really cares about the bowl games nowadays? Tennessee's made the Elite Eight twice, hasn't really punched a ticket. 0 important national titles since then. I hope you get your night tonight. But if not, the meltdown will be just as much fun to watch. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. And the star of all of this, and this is a made-for-TV kind of guy, kind of like how Caitlin Clark on a national level is made for TV. The star of this with Tennessee is the coach. I mean, it's as simple as that. And coming up next, one, there are some rumors about the coach. And number two, it would be very fun to push the chips in on the coach tonight. I'm not sure we can do that. We'll get to that next. 615-737-1025 is our phone number. It feels so good to be back. Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game.
This ball is popped up into right. This one is now at the track, and that's where it will die when the wind brought it in. It just didn't sound the same as the foul ball. And Tennessee forces a game 3. They win it 4-1.
That was Carl Ravitch on the call, ESPN yesterday. By the way, Ravitch stinks on play-by-play. I mean, I
You
know,
think so, huh?
What's that?
You think so?
Oh, I think he sucks. Well, sucks might be strong.
I do miss him on Baseball Tonight.
When he was doing Baseball Tonight, and John Miller and Joe Morgan were doing Sunday Night Baseball. May
good
Joe
old
Morgan
days.
rest in peace. But like that was great. And now I think Ravitch is more of a studio guy who's calling games. I don't think he's very good. And they stick him on the World Series. They stick him on Sunday Night Baseball. They stick him on some of the best college games. I am not a fan. And I mean, even in that cut, Ravitch wasn't all that excited. It's like that ball was like 3 feet away from being a home run and tying the game. And he said, they're like, and it's popped up to right. You listen to Ravitch, you think it's a can of corn, and that the guy's standing out there in the middle of right field. But I digress. So today, Texas fired their baseball coach, and so immediately everybody was like, Tony Vitello, what does this mean? Let me say this. I don't think Tony Vitello is going to go to Texas. And whatever Texas, and I know Texas has a bunch of money, but whatever Texas would be willing to pay Tony Vitello, I have a feeling Tennessee would be willing to match. That guy is so popular when it comes to Tennessee. And so I was thinking about this yesterday, especially when Jace Laviolette hit that home run in the first inning. And watching the game, again, I'm watching these games more for you than I am for me. It's not that I'm not excited, about college baseball. I like college baseball to a certain extent. It's not that I don't think that it's a big deal. It's Tennessee, and this is Tennessee. Like, I get it. But I'm here because if Tennessee wins a national championship tonight, they are going to celebrate in the streets like when Kentucky won the national title in basketball and they started burning couches. And if they lose tonight, they might start burning couches too. And that's really what I'm here for. More so you guys than it is me.
You think they'll be that upset if they lose?
I think they will be.
Even though they made it to the championship game?
Because
final game?
It'll be some bad call. It'll be some it'll be something bad.
Well, yeah.
Why Tennessee lost.
Yeah, if that happens, maybe. But
I was thinking about this when Laviolette hit the home run last night. I said, man, if they lose this game, is this going to be another Tony Vitello can't win the big one? And then I stopped myself. Now, look, at some point in the future, Vitello's going to have to win a championship. If it's not tonight, it's going to have to be down the road. Because just like Connor McDavid in the hockey game, you got to win a title before we can start asking if you're as good as Gretzky. But tonight's game is not about Tony Vitello. And if they had lost yesterday, it's not about Tony Vitello and whether or not he could win the big one. Tonight, it's about the starting pitchers. Tonight, it's about who's going to get the big hit with runners in scoring position. Tonight, it's about who's going to make the big defensive play. I thought yesterday, A&M, when they got Christian Moore to ground out to second base with the bases loaded and a great play by the second baseman on a just slow roller out there, I was like, those are the kind of plays that win you championships. Those are the storylines tonight. It's not about Tony Vitello. And it reminded me of when I was in college. Louisville made it to the Final Four in 2012. And we had something like we were like a 4 seed that got hot, and we lost to Kentucky with Anthony Davis. They ended up winning the title. And I remember when that happened because I was in New Orleans as a fan cheering my team on, and there were people that were like, just Patino, he just can't beat Calipari. And I'm like, I understand the discussion. Like, I understand the fear, the anxiety about, man, can our coach just not beat that guy? But that's not why we lost to Anthony Davis and Kentucky. We lost because Anthony Davis was a generational college player, and that team was so good, not even Calipari could screw it up. And that's why we lost. And I keep thinking about what David Justice told Keyshawn a couple of months ago when he did his podcast, and Keyshawn started talking about how the Braves didn't win any of these World Series except for the one, and David Justice said, Keyshawn, the other guys have good players too. So, again, could tonight be Tony Vitello's last game because of the Texas rumors? I mean, I've heard rumors on both sides of this. I've heard rumors that Vitello could be the guy Texas is targeting. I've also heard that Jim Schlossnagle, the head coach at A&M, that he's the guy that Texas is targeting. And I want to push that to the side. I'll get back to that in a second. But, again, tonight's game, it's not about the coach and whether or not he can win the big one. It's really not. Now, if we go through 20 years of this, like let's say they lose tonight, and we go through 20 years of this, where Tony Vitello keeps getting close, keeps getting to Omaha, keeps having the number one team in the country, keeps being on the doorstep, and he can't close, then it becomes that. But right now, even if they lose tonight, you got to tip your cap and give credit to the other team. That's a good team. And not only that, Jim Schlossnagle, the coach at A&M, this is his 7th trip to the College World Series. He's never won. So when the home run got hit yesterday, and I don't know if I view everything through the talk show host lens, I think I kind of do. But when they hit that home run yesterday, I sat there on my couch and I said, man, Tony Vitello, is he going to choke on this one? And then I decided, no, it's not about that. Although Vitello was going nuts at the beginning of the game yesterday, I mean, I thought he was getting run. Like, he's running out the dugout and he's, throwing dirt in the air on the third pitch, and the ball was outside. I heard the morning show talk about this, and I heard that Rex Road tweeted out that the ball was outside, and Tennessee fans went crazy about, oh, no, you don't understand what it was, what the strike zone was yesterday, and you don't. I thought the umpire yesterday was very consistent. Now, about the rumors about Vitello and Texas and everything else. Again, Texas could offer Tony Vitello $1 gazillion to be their coach. And if I was Texas, and I have no idea about their baseball situation other than to say I know Texas is a proud baseball school, going all the way back to Roger Clemens. And it may go even further back than that. Augie, when he was the coach there, they did a whole docuseries or documentary, and they showed Augie just going nuts in the locker room after a game, and I don't think Texas lost another game, and they won the College World Series that year. I remember when Vanderbilt made their first super regional, back in the day, and they went to Houston and got beat by, or they went to Texas and got beat by Houston Street, and, I mean, Texas is a very proud program. They got a lot of money. They like to win in all the sports. But I will say this. I don't see Texas being able to offer more money than Tennessee. And I don't think that there's a price Tennessee won't match. And I think Tony Vitello loves the fact, I think he knows he's got it good at Tennessee. I think he knows he's built it, and so he doesn't have to go somewhere else and live up to the Tennessee expectations. He's already got the machine rolling. And I think there's something to be said. I talked about how at Tennessee, it just means more to the University of Tennessee and that fan base. They're going to treat tonight like a football game. Nobody else around the country is going to treat tonight like a football game. But they will. They care that much. Why would he leave that? Now, the other rumor is the other coach, Schlossnagle, over at A&M. And that would make a lot of sense, right? The kind of thing about Texas is usually they like to stay Texas. Texas fires the football coach. They like to hire Tom Herman, who's already at Houston. So you got a guy who's already in Texas. Let's hire the Texas guy. That's usually how they like to do it. Their women's basketball coach, Vic Schaefer, was a long-time assistant at Texas A&M under Gary Blair. They paid him $1 gazillion after he went to Mississippi State and won a title. Schlossnagle comes from TCU, then he goes to A&M. The one thing I'll say about this is, if I'm Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC, I am not letting Texas hire Jim Schlossnagle from A&M. And this would be the one time I'd say to A&M, this is the one time I'm doing this. But I would not let Texas hire the A&M coach, especially if A&M wins a title tonight, only because A&M was so against Texas joining the league. A&M did everything they could, and Greg Sankey looked at A&M. A&M started kind of this westward expansion with the SEC. Who cares about Missouri? This was about A&M and getting cable boxes in Texas for the SEC network, and it worked. The reason that A&M left was because Texas was going to little brother them by getting the Longhorn network, so they went to the SEC. So when Texas wanted to join the party, it was like, whoa, 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 whoa. We left to get away from them, not to be little brothered by them again. And Greg Sankey said, deal with it. I think this is the one where Greg Sankey, if I was commissioner of the SEC, I'd say to Texas, you can't hire A&M's coach. Can't do it. Go hire somebody else. Now, I don't think Greg Sankey's going to do that because I don't think Greg Sankey has the kind of focus on morality, I guess, that I have, or cares about fairness like I do when he's trying to expand the basketball field and the football field just so he can make more money. But that's what I would do. I would not allow them to hire A&M's coach, especially after A&M wins a title. But I don't think Tony Vitello's going anywhere. Texas could offer Vitello $4 million a year. I think Tennessee would match it. And then at that point, even for Texas, it's like you're losing millions and millions of dollars for baseball. Are you really going to do that? So I'm not so sure that Vitello's going anywhere. 615-737-1025. Loaded phones, we'll get to them. 615-737-1025. Plus, I'm going to sound like a Debbie Downer. I'm going to sound like a hater. I'm going to sound like the kind of things that Tennessee fans have been getting mad at me for years about. But I'm just saying, let's just remember it, and let's get to that next. Hey, Nashville's best deal of the week is Puckett's. That's right, Puckett's Restaurant. Swing by Puckett's Restaurant, where down-home tradition meets a vibrant atmosphere. From their mouth-watering slow-cooked smoke barbecue to comforting classics and live music. Go to thegamenashville.com now to get a $50 gift card for only $25 while supplies last to Puckett's. Nashville's a little different, and I'm sure you see that Nashville's one of the top college football markets in America.
Yeah, but Nashville's got people from everywhere.
Yes.
Most of them are not Alabama people.
So here's
Most
what
of
it is
them
in
are very
Nashville.
excited.
It's half, I think it's half Tennessee fans, and Tennessee fans can get a little out there sometimes. And
Can
then
they? I'd never heard that.
Or you've experienced it firsthand. And it's half people who hate Tennessee. And Tennessee's the only school in the SEC where every other school in the SEC hates Tennessee.
No, come on, man.
Yes, think about it. Nobody, South Carolina doesn't hate Alabama, right?
I don't know. I can't answer for the people. I mean, I do think that the more successful you are, the more disliked you are by the rival schools, and that's more true in the SEC than anywhere.
But I don't think Mississippi State hates Georgia. But I know you talk to Mississippi State fans, they hate Tennessee.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I guess they hate Ole Miss. I think they don't like Alabama because Starkville's just down the road from Tuscaloosa, as you know, and they've lived in that giant shadow. And they've been kicked around in the SEC West for a long time.
But the whole point I'm just making is that Tennessee's the one school that is disliked by every single
I don't buy
fan
it.
base
I don't. You know better than
SEC.
me, but I don't buy that. Look, people are starting to dislike Georgia. The more you win, the more dominant you are, the more disliked you are. Period. That happens in pro sports as well, as you know. So I don't know. I mean, if you want to have a persecution complex, and everybody hates Tennessee.
They have that.
Come on.
That was Chris Fowler at the Super Bowl. That was a great interview, by the way, Ian, that we did with Chris Fowler.
I agree.
And, he's like, if you want to have a persecution complex, they do. Mike texts in, and he says, I'm surprised ESPN doesn't try to find their way into the SEC because they hate Tennessee more than anybody. That's what Mike says. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. My favorite thing, too, is Mike texted in to Robbie and Rex Road at 7:43 because I can see his last text and said, everybody hates Tennessee. Again, there is a lot of truth to that. Now, I want to just throw this out there, and then I get right back to your phones. I'm not going to make a big deal about it. But if Tennessee wins tonight, Tennessee fans will party in the streets. They will talk about the best coach, about how they have a great team, about how this was a team of destiny, a number one seed. They didn't slow up. They didn't. Let's not forget the game of inches, and let's not forget how generous it was in game one. I was out last week, so I didn't get to this. How generous it was in game one with that check swing against Florida State that umpire was too afraid to call. They went down to third base for the check swing. The guy clearly went. It was obvious in live time. It was obvious on the replay. They should have called a third strike. It should have been the end of the game. Tennessee should have lost. And if you lose the first day in Omaha, you're not going to end up getting to the championship series. But because there was a puddle down the leg of that umpire at third base, Tennessee got that one call, and now they're on the verge of a championship. And that is, for anybody who doesn't know, that is what the ball bouncing your way actually means. That you were lucky enough to get that scaredy cat umpire for that game at third base. If he's at second base and a good umpire is at third base, you lose. You're not playing tonight. Now, I'm not going to do the whole, you're only there because of a lucky call thing, like I'm sure Vanderbilt Twitter will do at 9:36 tonight if Tennessee wins the title. Because, in all fairness, I thought the Vols got jobbed in the Elite Eight basketball game. So, it's what goes around comes around. What goes up must come down. They got jobbed in the Elite Eight basketball game. I thought Tennessee really got screwed by the officials, no matter how much Willie says, the officials didn't. No, they got screwed. And so, hey, it's nice to have the Plinko chip fall in your corner every now and then. That's what happened to Tennessee at the beginning of this. Don't forget it. 615-737-1025 here on the program. A lot of hate for Carl Ravitch in the text line. One texter says, it was painful to listen to the Vol Radio Network cover the game yesterday. Doesn't Vince call those games, Ian, for the Vol Baseball Network?
I think he's on the coverage. I don't know about the play-by-play.
Hey, make of it what you will. I didn't listen to it. I'm not going to listen to it tonight, so you'll have to tell me. I was surprised at the Edmonton final call from Game 6. You know, the Florida final call of Game 6 was something along the lines of, and we will have to do it. In Game 7, we will go back to sunrise on Monday night as what was a 3-0 lead is now tied at 3, and it all comes down to this. And the Florida Panthers will lose by the final score of, what was it, like 4-1, 5-1, whatever it was. The final score of 5-1. Then I heard the Edmonton call, and I was expecting it to be like a, you know, normally when I do these things, I throw a little country accent behind it, and I don't think that they'd have that in Edmonton. But I was expecting, you know, excitement and giddy and joy, and it was more kind of similar to that Florida one, which was like, and it will all come down to the biggest game in the history of the NHL on Monday night. But it wasn't like, we did it back to Florida, here we go. It wasn't that, which I was kind of expecting. I was a little surprised. It would not surprise me if the Vol Network was a lot of that. I mean, we're talking about the same network that has the 3-point, that, you know, when they hit a 3-pointer, the color analyst just goes, money, every time, which I find to be obnoxious. Kyle in Shelbyville says, I'm a Vols fan, and I could not stand seeing other people support the Colts because of Peyton Manning. The Titans would have been more fun during my childhood without Peyton Manning on the Colts. Amen. And that's what I'm afraid of with Anthony Richardson. But if Anthony Richardson can never stay healthy, then I guess it's not much of a problem. But woof. One texter says, the reason why everybody dislikes Tennessee fans are because the worst Tennessee fans, the bad Tennessee fans, are the worst bad fans in the SEC by a country mile. Now, yes and no. Let's not forget Harvey Updike poisoned the trees in Toomer's Corner over there at Auburn. I mean, that's pretty heinous. You know, wasn't that tree like 400 years old?
Super old.
Like older than the country. And he poisoned, like, that's bad. like that is. So when we talk about bad, you know, let's not forget about that. I am not somebody, though, that just like paints the Alabama fan base with a giant brush. I really don't think the Alabama fan base is any different than any other power fan base in the SEC. Georgia, LSU, you know, all these schools have their crazies, but like the crazies don't run the operation. At Kentucky, for basketball, the crazies run the operation. At Tennessee, the crazies run the operation, which is how you end up with Shiano Sunday. I mean, I still think that Shiano Sunday thing is something Tennessee fans are never really going to live down. But they got a good football coach now, and they might win a national championship in baseball. So I don't know exactly who's going to be upset about it. Robert says he's here strictly for the meltdown tonight. Over under on how many mustard bottles get thrown onto the field if Tennessee loses. I will put it at 2. One texter says bad call in favor of Tennessee, like the check swing, was clearly not only a strike, but calls are part of the game. It was a bad call against Tennessee. But how did they take it? And it shows all the Ole Miss game where people threw the things on the field and the mustard bottle and whatnot. I heard Joe this morning, and he's in Omaha covering the series for The Athletic. I heard Joe say that he thinks it's 70% Vols fans in Omaha. That would not surprise me, but I also cannot take Joe's word as gospel because about 3 or 4 years ago, the Titans played the Bills on a Monday night game, and it was a 60-40, 50-50 type crowd. And Joe was like, no, it was like 80% Titan fans. I'm like, dude, I don't know what stadium you were at. But because Joe sits in the press box, he sits, you know, the Titan fans that's the home sideline right below them. And so those are probably the fans that care the most, that are true there to root for the Titans. But no, that Buffalo game, that was a 50-50, 60-40. It was not close. And Joe said, oh, no, the Titans fans were 80-20. So I'm not sure I can take his word for it. If Tennessee loses on a bad call, those fans are going to go nuts. And I think we all know that. And I think that's why, again, that texter said, like, the worst Vols fans are what makes everybody in the SEC dislike them. Thought Matt Jones came on our show a couple years ago, and he was talking about Tennessee fans. And he was like, Jared, here's the thing about Tennessee. You know, I don't like Louisville at all, But I got a different feeling about Tennessee because Tennessee fans, they can be at 2-9 and think they're going to win the next game by 80 points. And there is something to that. The shoe does fit when it comes to Tennessee. One texter texts in and says they hate us because they ain't us. Again, the opening monologue of today's show was about how I said, look, I don't think anybody around the country really cares about college baseball. Like, I don't think people around the country are watching tonight. I'd be surprised if this game draws over 3 million viewers, especially going up against hockey, which I think is going to draw over 10 million viewers. So I'd be shocked if a lot of people actually watch this game. But it matters to Tennessee fans. Like, to Tennessee fans and to Vandy fans, to Tennessee fans, this matters as much as a national championship in men's basketball would matter. Now, if I asked you if you had to pick men's basketball or baseball, you take men's basketball, but it'd be kind of close. But it doesn't mean that to everybody else. Where the men's basketball game, if Tennessee was in it, would draw 15, 16 million viewers. So don't give me that they hate us because they ain't us. Again, Ohio State's baseball team, the year Vandy ended up winning the championship in 19, I believe Ohio State came here in the regional. And Ohio State's baseball team's not that good. Vandy won their second national title that year. You're going to argue that Ohio State fans are jealous of Vanderbilt? Probably not. I remember I was on a date the night that Vandy won their second national title in 2019. And I had the game on. And this was with someone who did not care about sports. And she gave me this look like, why are we watching this? And I was like, well, it's kind of a big deal for work. And and I look back on that. I'm like, it wasn't really that big of a deal. It's nice. But again, it's college baseball. It's like, okay. Now, get like a Barry Bonds on there. Maybe it's a little different. But there is not a Barry Bonds on the Tennessee Volunteers. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025 here on our program. And I got a little football thought that I want to get to. We'll do that coming up next. Here's Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game. And let me tell all the fine folks out there, join us this July 4th at the 18th Annual Music City Hot Chicken Festival at East Park. It's a spectacular day packed with live music, contests, and, of course, free hot chicken. Well, I said free. It doesn't say free. But it says it's free, so bring the whole family. So it is free. Discover more at hotchickenfestival.com.
You talked to Ryan Tannehill at all, and so you surprised at all that he hasn't signed with the team?
I'm very surprised. I mean, I think Ryan's a heck of a quarterback, and I think that he could still play in this league. And he was such a huge part of my development as a player and as a person. And him and his family, him, Lauren, and his kids are great people and people that I got close with. But I haven't talked to him too much. But I do wish him the best, and I know that he's still got a future in this league.
There you go. That was Will Levis talking about Ryan Tannehill. And, we haven't really, Ian, I feel like we've put this on the grid like 15 times, and we have not at any point actually done this topic, which I'm a little surprised by. But I am shocked Ryan Tannehill doesn't have a job. That Ryan Tannehill didn't get a job this offseason as kind of a challenging for a position somewhere kind of spot. Now, ESPN and Aaron Schatz, who used to be with that Football Outsiders website that Willie loves so much, the analytic guys, Aaron Schatz has the last move that every team needs to make before training camp. For the Titans, it's trade Treylon Burks, which I'm sure we can get into at some point. But for the Chicago Bears, their final move is sign Ryan Tannehill. That's, again, what this analytic guru at ESPN says. Quote, the Bears believe they have put a real playoff contending team around rookie quarterback Caleb Williams. So what on earth are they going to do if Williams gets hurt? Tyson Bagnet and Brett Rippon are not bringing this team to the playoffs. The Bears should sign the best free agent quarterback left on the market and let him earn a check as Williams' backup and as a veteran part-time coach. If I'm Ryan Tannehill, unless they offer me a boatload of money, I don't think I'm doing it. Because I think what Tannehill's done, and again, I have no idea what happened to Ryan Tannehill this offseason. When Arthur Smith got the job with the Steelers as the offensive coordinator, and Mike Tomlin had a press conference at the end of the year, and he said they were going to bring in competition for Kenny Pickett, I thought, well, they're going to bring in Tannehill. They're going to sign Tannehill. Arthur's going to tell Tannehill, hey, we're going to pay you $15 million, and you might be the backup. And then they were going to let Kenny Pickett get all the first-team reps in training camp, and if Kenny stunk and Tannehill outplayed him, Tannehill knows the offense because of Arthur, so just go ahead and make him the quarterback. And then they went after Russell Wilson. Now, Ian, if you had to pick straight up, cash aside, if you had to pick right now, Tannehill or Russell Wilson, who would you rather have as your quarterback?
Man, we did this game already a couple of years ago. I'm pretty sure we all went Russell, and maybe that was a mistake, but Russell looked kind of washed. But I'm not sure what Tannehill has left either. I might still go Russell.
So I'm going Tannehill because I thought Tannehill last year, I thought Tannehill got a bad deal. I thought Tannehill played well, given the circumstances with how horrendous that offensive line was. I mean, in the last game when Tannehill was just, winging it, I actually thought Tannehill might have played his best game. I think Russell is done. And I think Russell's I think he's a weirdo. And I think Tannehill's got I think he's got a good relationship with his teammates. Not sure he's the best leader in the world, but I do think he's got a good relationship with his teammates. But I say all of this because Russell is making the minimum because Denver is paying him $39 million this year. So Russell's getting $1.25 million from Pittsburgh. And so now it's like, okay, they could bring in Russell at $1 million. Tannehill, who's made over $200 million, I would think, in his career, is probably not interested in playing for $3 or $4 million. So I actually think now that Tannehill hasn't gotten a job, Indianapolis signed Joe Flacco, paid him a bunch of money. The Raiders, who technically have Aiden O'Connell as their starting quarterback, signed Gardner Minshew, so they've paid him some money. So some of these bridge quarterbacks, Sam Darnold in Minnesota, some of these bridge quarterbacks have signed, and I don't think there's a spot now that the draft's over where it's like, this team could use a veteran quarterback that could start so that the backup could sit behind him. Marcus is in Washington with Jaden Daniels. Jacoby Brissett is in New England. I think Tannehill should go the Joe Flacco route this year. Don't go to training camp. Somebody's going to get hurt. Don't know who it is, but it is inevitable. Given the state of offensive line play in the NFL today, it is inevitable that some team with playoff aspirations or even Super Bowl aspirations has a starting quarterback that gets hurt and does not have a competent backup. Like you, when you stuck Malik Willis in there on Sunday Night Football. And then you had to go get Josh Dobbs. I am sure that there is a team that qualifies that down the road will have that issue. And at that point, they might pay a pretty penny because they'll sit back there and say, hey, we need a quarterback. And Joe Burrow got hurt again. And again, knock on wood, I don't think it happens to Joe. But Joe Burrow got hurt again and we need a quarterback. Go get Tannehill. So Tannehill gets $10 million and he shows up and he gets out there and does his thing. Maybe Tannehill's retired. I don't know. But at this point, I would not sign before training camp if I was Ryan Tannehill, unless somebody paid me more money than I would expect someone to be able to pay me during the year. Wait your turn. Somebody will get hurt, and whoever that is, their team will have some crap backup because that's what happens in this league. Everybody thinks that there's no shot in the world that their backup quarterback will have to play, and then they all end up playing. So that's what Tannehill should do. One texter says, Tannehill does not have a job because the national belief is that Vrabel and his cronies couldn't be as bad as we all know they are. Tannehill had less to work with a poorer coaching staff than any quarterback in the league. That is a hot take. Here's what I would say on the Tannehill front about Vrabel. I think Ryan Tannehill has a lot to be upset about with this organization, on one hand, because they traded A.J. Brown. They gave him a horrendous offensive line for 2 years, got him killed, got him injured multiple times. Todd Downing sucked. But the organization also can look at Tannehill and say, you threw 3 picks in the Bengal game, and that cost us a shot at the Super Bowl. If you don't throw 3 picks in the Bengal game, we probably don't trade A.J. Brown. So I can see both sides of it. The national narrative, though, on Tannehill is that he stinks, and I don't think that that's necessarily all that fair. One texter says, who's backing up Brock Purdy in San Francisco? Because if I'm Tannehill, that is where I'm signing. Do we know who the backup to Purdy is?
I'll look it up.
I think they've got a real backup quarterback there. But I could be totally wrong about that. Andrew says, why would Ryan Tannehill want to get hit and get beat up? I'm sure he is loving his wife, his boat, his $200 million. If I had been behind Dennis Daly and Andre Dillard, I would never want to see another football again in my life. I do understand some of that.
Brandon Allen looks like is the backup there.
Okay, Tannehill could be the backup. Tannehill absolutely could be the backup there over Brandon Allen. Tannehill would be I actually thought Brandon Allen might end up being the backup here because he was the backup in Cincinnati before old buddy from Washington ended up there. Texter says Tannehill would be a great fit in Cleveland. Problem with that is they signed Jameis Winston, and they're paying him real money. I think Tannehill's probably like the 28th best quarterback on the planet right now. I think he's probably somewhere around there. Boy, a lot of y'all want to weigh in on the Vols. No couches or dumpsters are getting lit up today. It's baseball, not football, and we're not West Virginia. It's great to be a Tennessee Volunteer. Well, that's what you think. The rest of the country thinks Tennessee fans might melt down because, well, hate to say it, but that's what Tennessee fans happen to do. They melt down quite a bit when things don't necessarily go their way. Okay, coming up next, Game 7 tonight in the NHL. And I got to say, I think there's a chance. I'm not going to put all my chips in the middle on this, but I think this is the chance that people like me have been waiting for. We'll get to that, plus Barry Trotz may join us at some point in the 3 o'clock hour, so we'll do all that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. How about this Stanley Cup final? My goodness, it looked like it was going to be a total blowout. First of all, when it was Florida versus Edmonton, I was like, that's a good matchup. Florida is a great team. They are solid top to bottom, great players, Kachuk and Barkov, and guys I love like Reinhart and Verhaeghe and Bennett, and of course Bobrovsky and net, and then of course the best player in the world, the best power play ever in the Edmonton Oilers, which by the way, Barry Trotz may join us, this hour on the program. I said to Barry, because if you guys remember, Ian backed me up on this. If you guys remember, I kept saying when it came to do you want Vancouver, do you want Dallas, I said, stick me in the Central Division. I don't care who I play. I don't want any part of Edmonton.
I do think you said that.
And that is why I don't want any part of Edmonton. This comeback, which has been phenomenal. And I went to Game 5 of the Cup Final. My grandmother lives about an hour away. And I ended up going to Game 5 of the Cup Final. It was electric in the building, and then Edmonton just smothered them with a shorty, and as soon as they did, all of a sudden the entire oxygen left the building. The other night, when they scored that first goal, I said, Florida is in trouble, my goodness gracious. But I love hockey. I know sometimes the diehards that care about Igor Afanasyev, the diehards are like, Jared Stillman, you don't know hockey. Learn the game. You don't care about, you don't. Guys, I love the NHL. I have tickets to the NHL. I go to the games. I watch the games. As hard as it may be sometimes because of Bally Sports, I still find a way to watch the games. I love hockey. I love the NHL. And I've loved these NHL playoffs. Now, I don't love the NHL as much as I love the NFL, but that's okay. But there's no secret that hockey, when it comes to viewership, revenue, everything else, there's no doubt that it's fourth when it comes to the core American professional sports. Football is one. I think baseball's actually two, ahead of basketball. The TV ratings for basketball just continue to decline in the NBA. But most people would tell you basketball 2, baseball 3, and the NHL very clearly 4. Connor McDavid, again, he makes like $12 million a year, and that's a lot of money in that league. Trevor Lawrence makes 55 in football. So it's not exactly the same. But I do wonder if tonight's the night that hockey breaks through. I do wonder if tonight is the night where casual sports fans who have nothing to do, who get home from work, who crack open a beer, who sit down in front of the TV, because of the stakes of Game 7, because Edmonton is trying to pull off the unthinkable, the comeback from down 0-3, because Edmonton has the best player in the world in Connor McDavid, because the game's on ABC. It's not going to be hard to find. It's not on TNT. It's not on NBCSN, but it's on a real channel. I wonder if tonight's the night that hockey breaks through. If you don't tune in tonight, now here's a little different because Tennessee is in the national championship game for baseball. So if you're watching baseball because you're a Vol fan or because you're here for the meltdown to see what happens, I get it. But nationally speaking, if you can't watch hockey tonight, then I don't know when you'd ever watch hockey short of your kid playing. And I get it. Not everybody likes hockey. I understand that. Not everybody understands the rules to hockey. If you're just starting out, it is very confusing. But that's okay. If you want to grow the game, you've got to be willing to say, hey, just try tonight out. And when you see the pace with which these guys play, when you see the energy that they're smacking each other into the boards with, when you see the best player in the world, like I did last Tuesday night, take it the length of the ice, 2 minutes into a shift, going through 4 guys at one time just to drop it right off in front of the net, you realize hockey's a great game. A lot of you all around here learned that yourselves at one point or another over the last decade with the Predators. Look, this team started in 1998, and I went to a game here or there as a kid. Like, I think I went to one the second year. They played the Red Wings. I went to a playoff game in 2008 when Dan Ellis was the goalie. But, like, did I really care? No. But then all of a sudden they got good. They got good. 2011, they beat Anaheim. They got in that Vancouver series. And I loved me some Predators after that. And I didn't understand anything at the time. I didn't know any of the players on any of the other teams. But I was okay with that. And then slowly but surely, I continued to get into it. And then over the last decade, now I watch every game. We talk about it every day. That is how liking something over time happens. Hockey's a great sport. And again, this city at times barely noticed hockey until 2017. But it doesn't matter because people got on the bandwagon. And I remember how mad some of the old fans were. You know, the day one fans or the old school fans were when everybody started hopping the bandwagon in 2017. I'm like, guys, that's a good thing. It's a good thing to get more people to like your team and like your sport. Because if 2017 didn't happen and more people didn't hop on the bandwagon, we probably couldn't get the ratings we get talking the amount of hockey we talk. But because people do care now, because we do have a team and that team was good, it changes the game. And I look around the NHL. That arena was packed for game number 5 when I went to see Florida take on Edmonton. Now, apparently all these Florida Panther fans are selling their tickets because all these Edmonton fans, because let's not kid ourselves, Edmonton cares more than Florida. But all these Edmonton fans are trying to get to Fort Lauderdale to watch a game. And so now the tickets are like through the roof and everything else. But that's okay. Because Florida, that was a packed arena. Those fans were crazy. Those fans loved their team. Just like Dallas, a non-traditional hockey market. Just like Vegas, a non-traditional hockey market. Vegas, they've had a team for 6 years. They've been to the Cup final twice. They love hockey there. The non-traditional hockey markets right now are kind of the golden child of the success of today's NHL. In Winnipeg, where they can't sell tickets because they just don't have enough people that live there, in Winnipeg, they're sitting there saying, how can we be like Nashville? How can we be like Raleigh? How can we be like Dallas? It's good for the game. And so I look at the country, and I know betting is on the rise. It's legal in more places day by day. I wonder if tonight, given the circumstances, is the night that hockey kind of explodes, because Connor McDavid is the Caitlin Clark of the NHL. He's that good, and you all know it. Because every time he plays the Predators, they win 9-1. And I even heard Stephen A. Smith this morning. I guess he is in Florida. He's actually doing what I did. He's probably just there by happenstance. He's, hey, I'm going to the game. This was how Stephen A. Smith started the First Take show, which is ESPN's most popular show. This is how he started First Take off today.
Guess who's about to do that hockey, bro? It's us! It's us, baby! And guess what, Shay? Your boy is in Florida. I'm going to Game 7. I don't know a damn thing about hockey, but other than the fact that the puck is black. But damn it, everybody in the world is talking about hockey today. So that's what we gonna do. Shay's back in the house. Your boy is back in the house. PK Supon is back in the house. And Commissioner Gary Bettman is coming into the house. Holla at your boys! Game 7. Whoa! Let's go!
I don't think you guys understand how big that is for this sport. And I can promise you there are going to be some old hats that do not like that. Stephen A. wants to go because it's Game 7 and he doesn't even know. The number one voice of ESPN who has the rights to the games is openly saying on television that he doesn't watch hockey and he doesn't know anything about it, and that is so disrespectful. I think it's a great thing. I'm not going to lie. I think it's a great thing that ESPN, and kudos to the NHL, because Gary Bettman went on First Take, and kudos to ESPN because this morning they had Levy and Messier and PK and everybody doing the shows. I mean, ESPN's doing their part. I think it's a big deal. I think it's a big deal that Stephen A., the lead of that network, is like, I'm in. I'm going. Game 7. Because you guys know this. Ian, I'm going to tell you, Stephen A. is going to have a blast tonight at the game.
Oh, I would imagine so. It'd be hard not to unless it's a complete blowout.
Especially if it's close.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, if it's close, people go crazy. And so that's the whole point of this. Hockey is popular enough to where it is absolutely fourth in America. But it's such a good game. It's so much better than the NBA right now. It's such a good game that I'm hopeful that tonight's the night that it breaks through and becomes more mainstream, and we see more hockey highlights on SportsCenter, and we see more PK Subban hits during the week, and we see more talk about hockey on ESPN. And more importantly, we see more people that we know talking about hockey because they're starting to like the sport. So I think tonight might be a monumental night for the NHL. And I really, really hope Game 7, best player in the world, trying to do the unthinkable, packed arena. It's going to be electric. I hope that's what we get tonight. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. If I had to bet, when the lines opened, I think it was like a dead heat, basically. Basically a total pick 'em. But if I had to pick, there is one way I'm leaning, and I'm leaning heavily. And I'll explain why. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and company, as we are excited for Game 7 tonight of the Cup Final. I told you Barry Trotz, Predators general manager, was going to join us at some point here in the 3 o'clock hour as he is in the middle of his travels. Barry Trotz joins us now on the program. Barry, thank you so much. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I am absolutely super. I know you are short on time, so I'm going to get right to it. Big week with the draft coming up. Free agency immediately follows it. And while everybody's still focused right now on this season, you guys have had all your meetings and everything else as far as next season is concerned. So let's start there. How active should we expect the Predators to be in free agency? And, is it going to be spending a lot of money? Is it going to be spending slowly? Could it be some big names? I'm not asking for specifics, but just wondering how active perhaps the Predators could become free agency.
Well, I think I've made the calls. I'm hoping that we can be, modestly active, being very specific. And, obviously with moving Ryan McDonough to Tampa, we have a hole on the back end that we would like to fill. And I'm probably looking to, add another piece there. And then I'd like to delve into adding one piece maybe in front. But, depending on what you determine as a lot of money, I think there's a lot of money in free agency. And like a boss that I used to work for, Lou Lamoriello, used to say always, it's too many years and too much money, but that's part of the free agency.
Absolutely. So when it comes to adding, you and I have talked about this on air. We've talked about it off air. You guys are in a good spot as far as draft picks are concerned. I think there's a buzz about coming to Nashville. The more I've learned about Canada, the more I've learned about that 52% tax rate. So there may be a lot of people that want to come here. There are some big names that are on the trade market. Would you say you guys are in? There are some rumors that you guys are in some of those big names. Would you say that there's some accuracy to that?
Yeah, I think so. I think, and it's some of it is by default. A lot of the top players in the league sort of look for destinations where they feel that they can check a few boxes. One, are they a good organization? Two, are they in a good city? Three, are they have the ability to win, be it through the players or through draft capital and all those type of things. So we check a lot of the boxes. And do they have the number one thing is, do they have any salary cap flexibility? So I think we've checked a lot of those boxes. So we'll be rumored for a lot of things. I mean, earlier, as you know, we were rumored for I think it was a prominent player in Toronto, and that was just people trying to connect dots. But those type of things are going to be out there with us. I think we can be a really strong hockey club going forward, and we have a great city, and we got a great fan base, and we got great ownership. So I think we're going to be a prime target for agents to come to, and I think we will, we'll have, be active in free agency as much as we can.
As far as your own guy, UC Saros, we've probably talked about the Saros deal a couple times now. Are there lines in the sand when you guys approach Saros's camp, whether it's trade protection or length or whatever it may be, that you guys, just as much as you want to get a Saros deal done, you're not necessarily willing to cross? Or is this we're going to find a way to get this deal done kind of situation?
I think it's one of those, Juice knows what I think of him. I know his agent knows what I think of him. I've had very good dealings with his agent to this point. So I don't think there's necessarily need to be a point where you're going to draw a line in the sand. I think we're going to try to find a nice common ground where it's a win-win for both. And to this point, I see no reason to draw a line in the sand, and I'm sure they don't as well.
If you guys end up doing a deal, I'm just putting myself in his shoes. I would want a no movement clause in the contract, because Pekka had a no movement clause in the contract. Forsberg and Yossi have no movement clauses. And the reason I'd really want one is because Askarov's coming up behind him. Given the Askarov situation, does that make you maybe a little cautious about including a no move in a deal for Saros?
No, not really. Not really. I think certain players, they get to a certain level in the league that they earn that right. So I think Kandus is one. He should have some protection if we get a deal done. He's proven it in the league. So, but I do think, and it has to have a limit to it, just like anything. And it's probably a little different. I talk about this a little bit, just in general to other general managers, and there's only one guy can play in goal. You can have 12 guys that can play forward. You got 6 guys that can play defense. So when it comes to some of those, you have to just be cautious. That's all.
Barry Trotz is with us on the program. What do we make of Zachary Leroux and his performance in the Milwaukee playoffs, and are you penciling him in the lineup right now for next year?
No, I don't. I don't have him penciled in. I have him in the future. I have him penciled in, but I do want to have enough flexibility if Zach Leroux comes in at training camp and blows us away and makes the hockey team. I want to give him the ability to do that. So, but he had a great playoff. He's one of those players that is a unique blend of skill and physicality. And I'm going to say in sandpaper, and he is a shift disturber, if you will, he's unique to the players now. There's not as many of them. You look around the league, how many Brad Marchand type of players are there when it comes to guys that have that sort of blend. If you can find one on every team, it's really hard right now. A guy like Tkachuk and those type of guys have those unique blends. Now, can he play in the National Hockey League and do those same things and do the same numbers and stay disciplined and know how to do it in the National Hockey League? I think that's something that he'll continue to grow at. But all indications that he's making great progress. I know he is because I've watched him a lot. And obviously he was a big part of Milwaukee's run.
Other than Spencer Stastny, are there any guys in Milwaukee that you feel comfortable today saying, I think that guy could open next season or will open next season with the Predators?
Well, I think, it's guys like Svechkov and Leroux, Stastny. I'll tell you a guy that's had a really good run in the playoffs was Willsby and, Delgado. They'll all be battling it out for spots on defense. So, there's a few guys there that will be in the mix, and then obviously with Askey, we want to just make sure that he's continues to keep growing. He's a great prospect, but he's still pretty raw, and that's one of the reasons that bringing Mitch Korn back with him and Ben Vanderklok and Jason Barron and Pekka Rinne and our goaltending department. I mean, we really feel strongly that Askarov can really take it to the next level because he does it on size and natural ability. And now if we can just bring a little more of the technical game, a nice blend there, then you're going to see he's at the same pace that Pekka was in. If you remember where Pekka was in his career, I think he played his third year. Dan Ellis actually beat him out at training camp. And he went down to Milwaukee, I think it was the third year. And then he came back after that, and he never looked back. He's going to have a Hall of Fame career. So I'd like to see that with Askarov as well.
Yeah, Pekka even said on the show, he said that he thought it was the end of the world when he got sent down and looks back at it now and says it was probably the best thing that happened to him. Barry Trotz is with us on the program. As far as the draft philosophy is concerned, I have been reading the mock drafts. I don't really know a lot about these players, but you got a lot of picks. And I'm reading some of these mock drafts, and they'll say that, this guy, he doesn't have a high ceiling, but he definitely has, potential to be an NHL guy, low floor. And I'm like, well, hold on. The Predators aren't picking that guy because Barry Trotz has said, I want to take some big swings. Given the season that you guys had and the success that you had, has that changed the draft philosophy at all, or are you guys looking upside, upside, upside?
Well, I think we always want to look upside. But we're looking for unique skill sets. I mean, you can't have everybody having the same skill sets, or you just won't have what you need to win in the playoffs. So you want to create some different skill sets. So where we're drafting right now, I mean, obviously Celebrini is the cream of the crop. There's some high-end defensemen probably, and there's probably 4 or 5 that are sort of in that next level. I don't think it's a particularly deep draft when it comes to those high-end guys like last year, especially in the, probably the first 8 or 10 picks. This year it's probably a little shorter, but there's some good players, and I've done some research, and we dug into it with our scouts. No matter what you think of the draft, there is always what I call a core player. There's core players sprinkled end of the first and into the second almost in every draft. We're talking about the Braden Points and the Sebastian Ahos and people like that that are available. We just got to find them, and so I'm challenging our scouts to do that. I would like to, obviously, in this draft, I'd love to come out with some defensemen with some size, and take some swings there with, because there is a number of defensemen that have some good size, and obviously I continue to push for trying to get that very high end centerman when we can. So we're going to try to do some things at the draft. I talked to a number of teams that are trying to move up. Talked to a number of teams about, obviously some trade possibilities as well. And then obviously I've talked to a number of agents about free agency. And usually the agents are we're on a lot of teams' lists for free agency.
But you've only been talking to the Predators' free agents, not anybody else's.
No, you can't. You can, so, they try to. I think they try to get a gauge for the market. We try to get a gauge for the market of who's going to be available, so that you can sort of plan. I think that's across the league. The agents and the general managers, I think they try to work with their own clubs to get signed, and then when it doesn't happen, they become free agents. But they sort of, in some ways, you try to gauge the market, who's going to go, who's going to be free agent, and what the market's going to, the pricing of the market in the league too. So, but that's hard. Once July 1 comes, anything that was said before that goes out the window. So you tend to react a little bit more at that time, I think.
Barry Trotz is with us. Quickly, 2 more for you. Sherwood and Zucker, where are you on maybe bringing those guys back? I know you expressed you were trying to do something with Sherwood, and Zucker was a big part of the team down the stretch. Where are you kind of with them?
Well, I think we have an agreement that their asking price is not where we want it to be. So we'll continue to check with them until the final hours and see if their demands come down to where we think we can fit everything in. So anyways, yeah, we're in contact with them.
And then last one for you. Yesterday, you guys made a move, Igor Afanasyev, a guy that you talked about maybe trying to find a way to work his way into the lineup, dealt yesterday to San Jose in exchange for somebody that San Jose had loaned to you. Kind of what went into the thought process on making that move?
Well, I think we had, Igor is going to be, he's a good prospect, and he's going to play, but we just felt that we have multiple players that'll play at his level, and so we felt that we could move on. Also, he needs waivers. If he doesn't play on our team, then he's got to go on waivers. And I know San Jose, for instance, would be a team that would take him on waivers. And we had Ozzy Weisblatt on loan from the San Jose Sharks, and he really impressed our staff. Highly driven, highly competitive, underrated skill. He just sort of got buried in their organization a little bit for whatever reason, but he was outstanding for us, and we just felt that he doesn't need waivers as well. He was a former first-round pick. He's a little bit younger, and it made all the sense in the world for us to do that because he checks a lot of our boxes that we don't have. So we made the move.
Barry Trotz joining us on the program, Predators general manager. Barry, I know you're on your travels on your way to Vegas for the draft. Best of luck with the draft free agency. We look forward to catching up after all that's over with. And best wishes to you, the Predators, and you and yours, Barry. Thank you so much.
All right, take care.
Yep, Barry Trotz joining us on the program. And I just don't know if you're ever going to talk to a general manager right before the draft and get that kind of info. I mean, wow. I was writing down notes as he was talking because I'm like, okay, here are kind of the takeaways from it, and there's a lot of info. And I want to hit those coming up next. And your phones, add them all in. 615-737-1025 is our phone. 25. Barry Trotz, again, talking about the Saros deal, talking about how active in free agency, in the mix for trades. You know, where are they with Askarov and much more. 615-737-1025. Stillman and Company, 1025, 106 for the game. As far as your own guy, UC Saros, we've probably talked about the Saros deal a couple times now. Are there lines in the sand when you guys approach Saros' camp, whether it's trade protection or length or whatever it may be, that you guys just, as much as you want to get a Saros deal done, you're not necessarily willing to cross? Or is this a, we're going to find a way to get this deal done kind of situation?
I think it's one of those, Juice knows what I think of him. I know his agent knows what I think of him. I've had very good dealings with with his agent to this point. So I don't think there's necessarily need to be a point where you're going to draw a line in the sand. I think we're going to try to find a nice common ground where it's a win-win for both. And to this point, I see no reason to draw a line in the sand, and I'm sure they don't as well.
Okay, Barry Trotz on our program right then and there. I mean, it sounds, Ian, like it sounds to me like they're going to re-sign Saros, at least from what Barry said.
Still working on it pretty hard, yeah.
And that he feels comfortable that they're going to be able to re-sign Saros. And I asked him about trade protection. I was actually shocked he answered that question. Now, I asked Barry about trade protection. I said, look, Pekka had trade protection. Forsberg has trade protection. Yossi has trade protection. Saros is going to want trade protection. If I'm Saros, I want trade protection. And Barry said, when you get to a certain level, you're worthy of trade protection, i.e., we know if we do a deal with UC Saros, trade protection is going to be a part of it. Because that's kind of been my whole thing with this Askarov and Saros thing is if your long-term plan is to flip it to Askarov, you cannot give UC Saros a no-movement clause. Now, it may be a modified no-move, which would then give them, the ability to do certain things. But it sounds to me like he's probably going to give him a no-movement clause, which means he's committing to Saros. And then he said, you can have 12 forwards. You can have 6 defensemen. You can only have 1 goalie. So then I start to wonder when I was listening to Barry when we were talking to him, I'm starting to wonder, okay, if they're going to get a deal done with Saros, and if they're going to give Saros trade protection, then that means that Askarov is gone. Right? And then he says, hey, that's why we brought Mitch Korn back to the organization, was to work with Askarov. So what's that mean? I got to give it to Barry. I mean, I don't, what's the conclusion here? The conclusion is something that he alluded to in that interview is not going to be what happens. Right? Like, oh, we brought Mitch Korn back to work with Askarov so we can then trade him in a deal for Martin Necas. That's kind of the road. At least that's kind of my vibe. A couple of other things. On free agency, he says that he thinks that they will fill the back end spot with Ryan McDonough, probably in free agency. There are a lot of defensive defensemen, like Brent Pesce, for instance, that are out there that they could sign. I asked if they were in the mix for big names on the trade market, i.e. Necas, Marner, etc. He said yes. Everything he said after that to me is all kind of just whatever. I mean, it's important, and there's some context clues in it. But the big thing is yes, which makes me think they're in on Necas. Is that too far of a leap, Ian?
Maybe a little.
To just circle Necas and say, hey, this is...
Well, I mean, there has been some reporting around Necas, and there's definitely some deals coming in, and I think the Preds have been mentioned in a couple of these reports.
I just don't know what you have that's NHL ready to deal that you would be willing to deal in order to get Necas outside of Evangelista. And again, I think Necas is a very good player. I think he's better than Evangelista, but I don't know if he's that much better than Evangelista to where I could, in theory, have Evangelista on his entry-level contract and then go sign somebody else, and then I got 2 people. Just a thought that went through my mind. He said he does not have Zachary LaRue penciled into the lineup. Now, said that he does want to leave spots open in case a LaRue comes in or a Svechkov comes into training camp and lights it up. So keep an eye on that. And then I thought the draft answer was fascinating. Again, I always say, do Preds prospects on your own time. And Igor Afanasyev is a great example of this. They've been talking about Igor Afanasyev for the last 5 years. Igor played in 6 games with the Predators. I mean, it's let's let the guy get to the league, and then I can sit there and tell you, Spencer Stastny looks pretty good. But he did say there's a lot of good players in the draft, which that's fine. But he said there's always core players in every draft, even after the first round. They have 3 second-round picks. My gut is Barry looks at those 3 second-round picks and says, we're going to get one player out of that. We are going to get one big player out of that. And Barry did not hide that he's looking to move up. Aren't they selected to pick Ian 21st?
I think that sounds right. Yep.
So he says they're looking to move up. 3 second-round picks, maybe that's part of the package. Askarov, again, if they're going to do a deal with Saros and they're going to give him trade protection, maybe that's part of it.
22.
22. And they're trying to move up. And then he talked about wanting to go and get some of these defensemen and take big swings on defensemen in the draft. What that tells
Defensemen
me,
with size. Big guys.
Yep. What that tells me is, like, all these other guys on defense right now, they're going to sign somebody, and they've got Yossi, and they've got Mullendijk in the pipeline. Everybody else, Stasny, Willsby, Delgazzo, Fabro, all those other guys, Lazan, they're probably just guys to him. And he's wanting to build more of a core group like he had here when he was the coach. I can't believe I forgot to ask him about Carrier.
Yeah, he's on the RFA list. Yeah.
Carrier's an RFA?
Actually,
Carrier's a UFA.
No, he is a UFA. You're right.
I'm surprised I forgot to ask about Carrier. I asked about Sherwood and Zucker. I screwed that one up. Carrier's probably more important, than Zucker and Sherwood. Although if I could pick one of the three, I'd want Zucker back. But that's my bad. I forgot to ask on that front. All right, your reaction. 615-737-1025. A lot of you want to weigh in on this, and so we will do that next. Stillman and Company, 1025-1063 The Game.
as you know, I always like to check around to see what Nashville's up to before I come on. And I had one manager who kind of laughed yesterday and said, I think Barry's going to try to keep you very busy. So I think he's got a lot of irons in the fire, and I think he's looking at a few different things. And, you know, I think both potential, whether it's free agency or trade, I think Barry is active out there.
There you go. That was Elliot Friedman last week on the Midday Show. By the way, I saw Elliot last week, Ian.
Very cool. Did you say hi?
I did.
Awesome.
I saw, and during one of the intermissions of Game 5 of the Cup Final, I was at there in Florida, all the insiders were all huddled up during one of the intermissions, all just chit-chatting.
You had to sneak in there and break it up?
Well, I didn't, but it took everything in me not to go up to the group and say, I just want to do this. Pierre LeBron. Good to meet you, Jared Stillman. Talk about you all the time on the radio. But I'm
sure they would have appreciated that.
But we did not do that. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Again, Barry Trotz. You know, what Elliot just said right there absolutely aligns with what Barry said on our show. Let's go to Adam in Portland, who's been waiting patiently and is up next on the program. Adam, go ahead.
Jared missed you last week, man. Hey, look, so here's my thing, man, and I guess I'm going to stop saying trade UC because I guess it's not happening. So with it not happening, now I'm just like, don't trade a Scaroff. If you're going to keep him, then keep him as the backup. But here's the thing about hockey, and it drives me crazy. All I hear about for the last 6 years is this 8-foot-tall Russian goalie that's awesome and will be awesome one day. We pretty much never got to see him. I think he's played 1 or 2 games, and, like, you're just going to take him and use him as bait and throw him away? Like, that would irritate me as a fan to have to. And I know it's possible, and I know they do that, but, like, that's the point. Like, what does a draft night even matter? You know what I'm saying? Like, because you could never see the guy play ever, and
Adam,
he could be like all your picks towards one dude. You know what I'm saying?
Adam, 100%. Thank you for the call. And let me just say this: when it comes to Askarov, the pick itself, and this is absolutely second guessing, and it's not like I have the big board in front of me of the 2020 NHL draft. And there's no way that this is as bad as Isaiah Wilson, so at least David Poile has that going for him. But the pick doesn't make any sense. Again, I'm going back to 2020. At this point in time, you had been eliminated by the Arizona Coyotes in the play-in to the playoffs in the bubble, which is bad. You'd already fired the coach and brought in a new coach, and so you knew that at this point you were going to have to make some changes, right? Granlund was a UFA. Turris got bought out. You know, like, you knew that there were going to be some changes in the future that were upcoming post-COVID. And one of the changes that, again, I felt like had been decided at this point because Saros started all 4 games in the bubble was he's the goalie. Like, Pekka is now 1B. You're passing the torch. Saros got a new deal after that, which is the deal he's on right now. Why are you picking a goalie at 11? You only have one goalie. So why are you picking a goalie at 11?
Best player available.
Trade out.
Don't we get mad at the Titans for picking for need?
Well, best player available with the 11th overall pick at what position?
Skoronsky. You know, Peter Skoronsky.
A guard. A goalie. I just watched, in person, watched Stuart Skinner smoke Sergei Bobrovsky. And Stuart Skinner stinks. And he's going to win the cup. I got a feeling that he's going to win the cup tonight. And he stinks. But goalie's a very volatile position. I think it's like closer in baseball. There are some dudes out there that are like Mariano Rivera or Trevor Hoffman. But for the most part, when your goalie's hot, your goalie, can shut down anybody. And when he's not, it looks like game number 4 of the Vancouver series, which is not good. I mean, that's the thing is if you were passing the torch to Saros if you were really doing, because Willie keeps talking about the fact that, I think Pekka was a year younger when he signed his 7-year contract than Saros is now, when he would sign a contract. And my thing is, then why'd you pick a goalie at 11? Why did you not move the pick or get some defensemen or get a forward or, get a guy that might have a chance of playing. JD says, why do the Predators have so much loyalty to Saros? What skins on the wall does he have? All he has done is back up the best goalie in team history, and when the lights are brightest, he doesn't show up. I understand loyalty to a certain extent, but when the greater good of the organization is to have money to spend on studs and a big board forward, I would think that would outweigh it. Saros kept the Predators relevant for a while they were playing the conservative, just good enough game. The landscape needs to change with Barry Trotz in charge. I can't say I disagree. To me, the Vancouver series was the series where I was like, okay, you're not winning me playoff series. I don't understand why I need to commit long-term to you. I don't know why I have to give you all this money. And I do think that there's value in the trade market. Probably not as much as we think because Jacob Markstrom went for a bag of pucks last week. But I do think that there is my sentiment was that the Vancouver series was kind of the series that told me, like, okay, he's good, but he can't steal you the series. Pekka could steal you the series. They don't see it that way. I think goaltending is completely overrated. I have no interest in spending big money on goaltending because Stuart Skinner's about to win the Cup, after Aiden Hill won the Cup, after Darcy Kempfer won the Cup. So, that's just me. By the way, speaking of Kempfer, did you see Pierre-Luc Dubois got traded again?
Oh, yeah. He's a little bit of a head case.
I don't think I've ever seen that guy play a minute of good hockey.
I mean, this is his fourth team, I think, already.
He's making like $11 million with a full no move.
Maybe
it's like
8.
making Jack Eichel's contract. Well, I guess it's not Jack Eichel.
Not quite, but he's making a lot, yeah.
Unbelievable. Owen is up next here on the program. Thank you for calling. Thank you for waiting. What's up, Owen?
Hey, you just mentioned Jake Gensel. I was just wondering, what do you think that would look like for the Predators? Are we going to have to ship anyone, move anyone to create that cap space, or do we have that in the bag? What can we do for Jake Gensel? Thanks, Jared.
I mean, I think you've got the money for Gensel. The question is, where would you put him? Like, you're going to have Jake Gensel on the wing on a line with Colton Sissons? Like, is that – again, this is a guy that's used to playing with Sidney Crosby. Is that going to maximize what you're paying Jake Gensel for?
If you did that, you'd have to break up the top line and move Nyquist down.
That I'm not against, but at the same time, like – see,
but they really need a center. They need more
both left
center.
wingers? Aren't both Forsberg and Gensel left wingers?
They could probably make it work.
See, I don't like that. I like one scoring wing on a line. Like, let's say they did sign Gensel. And I'm with you. They need a center, not a winger. I want Gensel and Forsberg on separate lines.
Okay, he could facilitate with Forsberg, I think.
Gensel?
Yeah, be a good pass. He's a good passer, not just a scorer.
I'd rather have him on a second line scoring and Forsberg scoring on the first line. And so then it'd be Gensel and Evangelista. And we could all hope Tommy Novak could play that. But, again, they've got wings in the pipe. Kimmel's a wing. Wood's a wing. They got wings. They need centers. So I don't.
Yeah, ideally they would need get a top-line center and try and move O'Reilly down. In an ideal world, I think.
In an ideal world.
Yeah.
Good luck getting the top-line center. I mean, they've only been trying to do that for 26 years now. So we'll see if one day, some way, somehow, they can find their way to that. But again, if you just joined us, Barry Trotz earlier this hour tells us that he has been in contact with Saros' agent and sounded optimistic about getting a deal done, says that Saros has earned trade protection, says expect the Predators to be active in free agency, says they're in the mix for some of the big names that we've heard mentioned out there, is not ready to pencil Zachary LaRue into the lineup, and says that Sherwood and Zucker are asking for too much money, at least up until this point, and that he thinks that with all their second-round picks, they can find some core players later there, and said that they brought Mitch Korn in to kind of work with Askarov. And Pekka told us on the show, when we had Pekka a couple of weeks ago, Pekka said, when I went down to Milwaukee for year 3, I thought it was the end of the world. Now that I look back on it, I wish I had had a crystal ball and I could have seen how important going to Milwaukee for that third year would be. That's going to be what they tell us when it comes to Askarov if they don't trade Askarov, which is, hey, that third year was so beneficial for Pekka, and this third year is going to be so beneficial for Askarov. The problem is then it's like, okay, well, then after the third year, shouldn't Askarov be the goalie? Or did David Poyle use the 11th pick to draft the backup? 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. So I think that tonight's Game 7 has the possibility to be a breakthrough. A breakthrough for the NHL. I hope it really is. I really do. Coming up next, Will Levis is taking the boys out on a tropical excursion. But I'm a little curious of the logistics, and I'll tell you why. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Boy, I tell you, they always say, the summer, it must be the slow time of the year. Game 7, national championship game. The draft is later this week. Free agency follows immediately after that. Slow time? What are we talking about? Meanwhile, I saw that while I was out last week, Will Levis went on across the street on 104.5, and he said, I'm taking 5 guys out to Cabo. That's a good thing. It shows Levis wants to be a leader, because that's what quarterbacks, for the most part, do. They arrange a passing camp. I talked to Robert Turbin one time, the old running back for the Seahawks. And he told me when he was in Seattle, Russell Wilson brought them all out to Malibu during the offseason. And that Russell Wilson got him courtside for the Lakers, and it was a bonding experience. And Russell footed the bill, and he brought those guys out there, and it was kind of Russell Wilson's passing camp. So it's good that Levis is trying to emulate what other quarterbacks do. But when I heard that it was only 5, Levis had said that he was going to take some guys out. Callahan had said that Levis was going to take some guys out. So when I heard that they were going out, I had 2 questions that popped into my mind. The first is, who's paying for it? It sounds like Levis is paying for it. I'm not sure I necessarily like that. We'll get to that in a second. And the second I thought was, who all's going? And when he says there's only 5, I'm like, I'm not sure I like that. The first thing is the paying for it. I understand why Levis wants to pay for it. I understand why Levis wants to do it. I understand. It's not that Levis wants to do this because this is what other quarterbacks do, and so I'm going to do this to look like other quarterbacks so people will see me and they will say, way to go, Will. That's not why he's doing it. He's doing it because he sees the other quarterbacks that do this tend to have success, and he wants to have success like those quarterbacks. And I think that is admirable. But Will Levis makes $9 million over 4 seasons. That's it. Now, $9 million over 4 years is nice for me and you, but it's really not that much in that league. So when I see Levis is taking the guys out to Cabo, I'm thinking to myself, shouldn't Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins be the guys paying for that? Like if I was Calvin Ridley and I just signed for $50 million guaranteed, I would go to DeAndre Hopkins and I would say, hey, yeah, Will came up to me and he said he wants to take us all out to Cabo and everything else. And I think we should let Will think that he's going to pay for it. But then when push comes to shove, I think we should be the guys to pay for it. Because they are the veteran leaders and they're the guys who have money. Tajay Spears hasn't gotten paid. Will Levis, again, by league standards, hasn't been paid. Chigakonkwo hasn't been paid. Treylon Burks hasn't been paid. The 2 guys that have been paid on this team are Calvin Ridley and DeAndre Hopkins. And if I had to say who are the leaders on offense, specifically the skill position players, because we're not taking the fat guys with us, if I were to say who are the leaders on this offense, you would say Hopkins and Ridley, right? Those are the veteran guys. They're paid the most. They have the experience. And so when I heard that Levis was taking the guys out to Cabo, my first initial reaction was, who's paying for it? It sounds like Levis is paying for it. Does that make any sense for Will Levis, who's making like $2 or $3 million in cash this year, to be taking the guys out to Cabo while Calvin Ridley, who's making like $26 million in cash, is not? The second thing is this. Only 5 guys? So who decided who made the cut and who didn't? Again, Robert Turbin was a solid player, and I really like Robert Turbin as a guy. He and I worked together at Sirius. I really like Robert Turbin. But I can't imagine that Robert Turbin was ever in the top 5 with Russell Wilson when Russell was bringing those guys out to Malibu. Again, Russell was making $30, $40 million, so it's a little different. But I can't imagine that on those Seahawk teams that Robert Turbin was in the top 5. It's like the old T-Mobile cell phone commercials. Are you in my 5? So who are the 5 that made the cut? Who made the decision on the 5 who made the cut? Like, is Traylon Burks there? And then I do wonder, hey, when Levis decides to take 5, and I can see there being a cap, a real cap, a cap on how many guys could be able to go out there because of the money that Levis doesn't have, I could see there being some hurt feelings. That you're Nick Westbrook-Akine, and the receivers and the quarterback are all going out to Cabo to work on throwing and bonding, and I'm here in Oak Hill hanging out. Anybody want to invite me? I've got points. Don't have to pay for the flight. I mean, I kept hearing in these OTAs and everything about how Levis and Josh Wiley are forming a connection. Is Josh Wiley there? Only 5 guys. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, who got left out? Did Burks make the cut? Did Chig make the cut? I mean, Chig is supposedly the starting tight end of the Titans. I don't know how the starting tight end of the Titans cannot go to the quarterback's bonding passing camp in Cabo. But isn't Chig also battling it out with Wiley? So is Wiley not going? Now, look, I'm not saying that the undrafted free agents and the guys at the bottom of the roster, I'm not saying that those guys should expect to be invited on this trip, right? While the coaches need to coach them all the same, Will Levis, if he's in a drill with Kyle Phillips or if he's in a drill with Kearis Jackson, he's got to treat him the same. But Kearis Jackson is not going to be one of the top 6 or 7 targeted guys on this team this year, and that is if he makes the team. So I'm not saying they need to take Kearis Jackson out to Cabo. But you don't think that Wiley needs to go? Spears, Pollard, Burks, Boyd? I mean, to me, there's probably more than 5 guys that I would want to make sure are there. Now, some of these guys, again, this is their own time. And I think Nick Westbrook-Akine said in his last interview, said that he's, I think, just had a kid. So maybe it's like, oh, man, trust me. I understand the importance of this. I love my team, but my wife's going to kill me if I leave for a week to go to Cabo while she's here with the baby. There could be some of that. Tyler Boyd could be looking for a house this week. But just looking at the, only taking 5, and I'm like, man, I just hope there's no hurt feelings over that. And I just know, again, a trip to Cabo where the quarterback's taking his guys out, there absolutely could be room for hurt feelings there. And then also, again, when you're the guy, when you're getting paid like you're the guy, then you should pay for everybody. Like if I was the quarterback of my team, I'd pay for everything. Because I'm making $50 million a year, nobody else is, and I'm the quarterback. But Levis isn't that yet. He's not making Matthew Stafford money. Ridley just got paid. Hopkins has been paid handsomely for the last 7 or 8 years. Those guys should have been the ones to foot the bill for this trip, not put it on Levis, who's making $9 million over the next 4 years. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. So I don't know who's on this trip. Maybe social media has it. Maybe they don't. Maybe they've said, hey, no phones. I don't know. I think I have my gut who's on this trip and who should be on it if it's only 5. We'll do that next. And kind of what I'll call the target list. The guys in terms of who's going to get the most targets and touches. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
How have you outlined or kind of sketched out this offseason for Will and getting him ramped up on training camp?
For like the summertime?
Correct.
Yeah, he's got his process. He's going to take a little time for himself, spend some time with his family, and then he's got a little trip with some of those receivers planned, a little bit of a work bonding and enjoyment trip, if you will, a chance for those guys to go get their minds right for the season. And then I know he'll take a little bit of time off of throwing just because that's usually what quarterbacks do, and then they come back in July and start ramping up probably 2 weeks before training camp to get ready to roll. So he's got a good process in place. He's got a plan for the summertime, which is good. It shows some leadership and some ownership over his process away from here, which is good. So I feel really good about his plan.
There you go. That's Will Levis, or that's Brian Callahan saying, hey, he's taking some of the guys out. And so he's, going to be out there with his boys. They're going to be throwing. And so I have my idea on who's there. Again, I have no idea who the 5 guys he's taking are. My gut, Levis. Now, I don't think he counts as the 5, but Levis, Hopkins, Ridley, Spears, Chig, and Wiley. And the reason why I was thinking about this today, and I said, you know what, it wouldn't surprise me if Tyler Boyd is like, hey, man, I just signed here a month ago. I've got to find a house, move my family. I got stuff I got to take care of. I love you, but it's late notice. I got, whatever. Tony Pollard might be in the same boat because Tony Pollard, again, recent addition, not as recent as Boyd, but if it's only going to be 5, I had to kick somebody out, and I kicked out Pollard. I don't know how you can take Spears, though, and not take Pollard. Unless Pollard said, hey, I'm good, no thank you. But I looked up the targets from last year, and as far as who got targeted for the Titans, and it was like DeAndre Hopkins, Chig, NWI, Chris Moore. It's like, oh, God. So here's how I think the targets will go this year. This is just my gut. Number 1, I think DeAndre Hopkins will get targeted the most this season. I know they're paying Calvin Ridley an ungodly amount of money, but I still think that Hopkins is kind of more of the go-to guy. Ridley's the guy who can run down the field. That's why they brought in Ridley. As Chris Sanders always comes on the show to talk about, take the top off of the defense. And why does Chris Sanders always talk about that? Because that's what Chris Sanders did when he played in the NFL. So Ridley is more of the explosive play, deep threat guy. I think Hopkins is more the just wearing the ball out to that guy, which is kind of what I felt like was happening in Jacksonville until Christian Kirk got hurt. Number 2, I think Tyler Boyd is going to get the second most amount of targets on the team, again ahead of Ridley, because nothing helps a young quarterback out like a tight end. Well, the Titans have 2 tight ends, one who can't catch, dropped 10% of the passes that were thrown his way last year, and the other one has 9 career receptions. Boyd is a bona fide vacuum cleaner in the slot. And so I can see the Titans, with man beaters and kind of like, hey, man, it's 3rd and 4, when in doubt against this zone, look for Tyler Boyd. He'll find his way open, get him the ball, move the chains. Boyd is consistent. Boyd doesn't get hurt very often. So I think Tyler Boyd will be second. Number 3, I think, is going to be Calvin Ridley. At some point, they're going to have to throw the guy they're giving $24 million to. They're going to need to throw him the ball. Number 4, I think, is going to be Spears. The Pro Football Focus numbers, the analytics, say that Tony Pollard is not good out of the backfield catching the ball. Now, my eyes tell me that Tony Pollard is a better receiver out of the backfield than Derrick Henry. But the Pro Football Focus grades do not say that. They do say, however, that Pollard is a very good runner behind the pads in between the tackles. So I think what's going to happen is I think that Pollard's going to be the lead running back when it comes to running, and I think Spears is going to be the receiving back. And I'm not sure you should have used a 3rd-round pick on it, but I'm not going to cry over spilt milk. This was hard. I have a Conquo at 5. You guys know I'm not a Chig guy. I gave Chig the benefit of the doubt last year. I went to training camp and thought Chig was going to be a breakout player, and then he forgot how to catch. And maybe he just didn't know how to catch to begin with. I don't know. He went in the 4th round for a reason. But Josh Wiley can't stay healthy. And until Josh Wiley proves he can stay healthy, I certainly cannot put a guy who has 9 career receptions over a guy who in his 2 years hasn't missed any time. And then 6, I put him on the list, Ian, Nick Westbrook-Akine. You want to know why?
Because he'll play.
Because he always finds his way in the game. No matter how many receivers they draft or receivers they sign or whoever they add or tight ends or whatever, no matter what they do, they always seem some way, somehow. I guess I'm not smart enough to figure it out. Some way, somehow, NWI always finds his way on the field, and I have no doubt that will be the case this year. Phone lines driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com at 615-737-1025. One texter says, Wiley and Chig are in Cabo. They've been posting about it. In the room, maybe keep this between us kind of thing, but, who knows? Robert in Spring Hill says maybe Levis is using the mayonnaise money to take those guys to his quarterback camp. I can't imagine that. Again, I'm just telling you, if I was Calvin Ridley and I had signed for all this money, I'm going to tell a story here. So years ago when this was the Jared and the GM program, anytime we'd go anywhere, Floyd picked up the check. We were in Atlanta one time. We went to a nice restaurant in Atlanta. And a buddy of mine that I went to high school with lived in Atlanta, and he joined us. Floyd picked it up every time. I used to be like, Floyd, I mean, they're giving us per diem. I got money. I can pay. Don't worry. I got this one. No. Every time. Over the last 3 years, me and Caroline go anywhere, I'm paying. Me and my girlfriend, Caroline and her boyfriend, I'm paying. That's just how it's been. 2 weeks ago, Caroline and I went to CMA Fest after Caroline had taken the new job. And we were at CMA Fest, and we hit the bar, and Caroline was like, I got it. She's like, because, she got her new job. This is kind of how, things go. So until Levis makes the money, if I'm Calvin Ridley, I'm going to him saying, hey, guys, I'm paying for this. It reminds me of a story years ago. Barry Bonds has a reputation for just being a complete a-hole. And I read this book about Barry Bonds, which was a great book. But apparently, Barry was pissed about the kind of peanut butter that the San Francisco Giants had on their spread in the locker room. I know it sounds crazy, but again, this is Barry Bonds we're talking about. So Barry went to the Giants and he complained. And the Giants said, Barry, you don't like the kind of peanut butter we buy? How about you pay for the peanut butter? So Barry Bonds got up in front of the entire team, according to this book, and Jeff Pearlman wrote it. Barry Bonds gets up in front of the entire team, and he says, all right, guys, I'm going to start charging everybody because we're going to get the nicer, newer peanut butter. I mean, Ian, I don't know about you, but, I don't care if it's Jif or Skippy or Kroger brand or Walmart brand or
I don't think they taste all that different.
Kirkland brand. It does. I don't know what's up Barry's rear end about this, but apparently there's something. So Barry Bonds gets up in front of everybody and says, hey, I'm taking money from everybody for peanut butter. So Oral Hershiser, again, veteran players, made a lot of money. Oral gets up, and Oral says, hey, guys, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Barry and I will pay for it. And Barry said, hold on, I'm not doing, whoa, I didn't agree to that. And it's like, really? You're Barry Bonds, you're making $1 gazillion. There are guys on the team from third world countries that are sending every dollar they make home. And you got to complain, you got to bitch about the peanut butter? And apparently the answer to that is yes. Apparently the answer to that. So I'm just saying, if I was Calvin Ridley, I would just be like, hey, man, DeAndre and I talked to DeAndre, and then I'd say, guys, we got it. Daniel says, this conversation is in the category of none of our business. We don't know who's paying for what, and I'm sure they're all handling it with some grace. Also, if Levis is footing the entire bill, it's probably the kind of investment towards the second contract that he's aiming to get, which will dwarf anything that those other guys have ever made. I understand Levis's point of wanting to be like, guys, I've got it. I'll foot the bill. Go ahead and put it on me. I understand Levis doing that. If I was in Levis's position, I'd do the same thing. Because even though I'm not Matthew Stafford yet, I'm trying to show you that I can be Matthew Stafford. This is where the veteran, the DeAndre that's been in the league, since before Levis was in high school, says, hey, man, we see what you're doing, but thank you. As far as this being none of our business, none of these guys' contracts are our business. I mean, now, my argument is it is my business. There was a Predators player years ago who was partying too much, and somebody had asked me about it, and I knew that the Predators player was partying too much. And look, I didn't go on the air and start saying so-and-so's partying too much because that's not really my place. But I was telling somebody, I was like, hey, we need so-and-so to stop all the partying. And they said, well, it's none of your business. I said, no, it is actually my business because they need these players in order to win. And it is good for my business when that team wins. But none of this stuff's our business. Vrabel and Rand drama, that was none of our business. But that's what we do. We gossip. That's sports radio. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Okay, Game 7 of the Cup Final tonight. I have a feeling. I have a real feeling based off of something that I saw last week as to who I think's going to win. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company right here, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Ian, let's give something away.
Cool.
I'm in a good mood. Be caller 5 right now at 615-737-1025, and you will win a pair of tickets to see Sarah McLachlan at Ascend Amphitheater this Saturday night. True story. I remember when my parents took my sister to camp in North Carolina one year, and Sarah McLachlan had just come out with that Angel song or whatever that was in that movie, and apparently my mom listened to it on repeat the entire time, and I think it still causes my dad trauma. So enjoy those tickets. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
They haven't stopped believing. And this series gets dragged back to South Florida for a winner-take-all Stanley Cup Final Game 7.
You know, you can't kind of ride the wave or the roller coaster. It's, you know, we really haven't done anything yet. You know, we've won 3 big games to get ourselves back into the series, and you know, it comes down to 1 game here, and we'll be ready, and we're looking forward to that. It's a great opportunity.
That is the greatest player in the world right now, Connor McDavid, as they look to pull off the unthinkable. Down 0-3 against what is a really great hockey team. I mean, that Florida Panther team is legit, and they might pull it off. And I'm here to tell you something. First and foremost, I do not believe in momentum in NHL playoff series. I absolutely believe in momentum in baseball, especially like in the baseball playoffs. Usually the team that loses burns through their bullpen. And so it's like, you know, yep, they're down 3-1 in the series going into game 5, and they've got, you know, they may be able to throw Mejia a couple innings, and they really need a solid start out of their 4th starter here, whereas the other team can kind of kick their feet up and say, hey, you know, we can go with our guy, and if he gets beat, he gets beat. But momentum in baseball is real. Momentum in basketball, for some reason, is absolutely real. I do not believe in momentum. We talk about it every year now. I do not believe in momentum in playoff series. If momentum in playoff series mattered at all, then there is no way the Predators would have gone to Vancouver in Game 5 and beaten the Canucks after the way they crapped their pants in Game 4. So I just don't believe in it. Remember that Anaheim series a couple years ago, 2016? The Predators go on the road to Anaheim. They take the first 2. They come back to Bridgestone Arena. They lose. Then they go to Anaheim, get smoked, and it's like, well, so much for that. And then they win Game 6 at home and go on the road and Pekka steals Game 7. So I don't believe in momentum. So I don't care that Edmonton, you know, has won 3 in a row and they're going into Game 7. But Tuesday night, I went to the game in Florida. We were taking our yearly family vacation to go visit my grandmother, who lives outside of Palm Beach. It's about an hour away from the arena. I was on Sirius on Saturday. I don't know if this played a role in it, but got a credential. And so I went to Game 5. It was pretty sweet. Honestly, the car, you know, I just called like a standard Lyft, dropped me off right in front of the production lot, which is where the media entrance was. Dropped me off right there. No line, went right in the back. It was incredible. But after the game was over, I went down to the Edmonton dressing room just to say hey to Matthias Ekholm, because I haven't seen Matthias Ekholm since he got traded. So I went down to the Edmonton room, and Ekholm was one of the guys talking, and, you know, he talked to the press, and then he talked to the European press. I don't know what the language was, but he talked to them. And then after that, he and I chatted for a couple of minutes, and our conversation was broken up when McDavid walked by and started to whisper something in Ekholm's ear, and it was kind of like, okay, well, that conversation's over, but it was good to see him. But the thing that I took away from going down to the Edmonton dressing room was there was a vibe. Like, there was a vibe in that dressing room last Tuesday night after Game 5. You know, everybody's got a microphone in front of Ekholm or Draisaitl or whatever, and they're all saying the right things. But it's not just like I'm saying the right thing because this is the rehearsed line that I need to say. It was they were saying the right things because their mindset was just, it was so in the right place. There was none of this, you know, oh, well, we've got to focus on taking it one game at a time, and it wasn't that. The cliches weren't there. It was almost more genuine of, hey, we spent all day telling ourselves we got to drag them back to Alberta. That's the only thing we're thinking about, is we've got to figure out a way to drag them back to Alberta. And everybody in that room was so cool and so calm and so collected. I told you guys that the week that John Robinson got fired, and the Titans got smoked at home by Jacksonville when Jacksonville was still bad. The week that happened, I went to practice on Friday. And when I was out there, and again, it's not like the media gets to see all of practice. In fact, it's really like the first 5 minutes or whatever. But you see when practice is over and Vrabel's out there, you walk out on the field and all the guys are coming out. The vibe I felt in the building was just a vibe of shock and despair and everything. And I picked Jacksonville because I was like, that vibe I didn't like. And they got crushed. And so where we sit here, I'm telling you, the vibe Tuesday night in that Edmonton dressing room, I walked out of it and I said, this team's going to win the Cup. Like, I just had that feeling. It also didn't hurt that we saw in that game McDavid. Again, I watched their power play. I think I can say this on the air. They played Edmonton this year in like October at home. It was a Tuesday night, which meant Barry came on the show. And I said to Barry off the air, I said, this team never beats Edmonton. Now, I said it in maybe a little bit more crude terms. I'd say very, very crude terms. And Barry said to me, he goes, everybody hears, this was the first game against Edmonton this year, and I know they won one up there this year. He said to me, he goes, everybody keeps saying that, but hopefully we'll get them tonight. And I think Edmonton won the game 7-2. I wasn't even mad about it. I went to the game, and I wasn't even mad about it. But watching that power play and watching the fact that McDavid never leaves the ice, scores a goal 2 minutes into the shift, goes coast to coast, goes through 4 people, and then drops it right off, and they put the puck in the net. I'm like, oh, my God, this is a team that is just on a mission. And it's the vibe I got. Maybe the vibe's wrong. But the vibe the vibe I got in that locker room was, I was like, this team's going to win the Cup. And they were only halfway there at that point. I've been thinking, who am I pulling for? It was funny because when somebody said to me, I was at my grandmother's house, and somebody said, who are you rooting for tonight? I'm like, I don't know. I don't care. Rooting for a good game, I guess. Felt like I kind of sounded like George W. Bush when he did a Super Bowl interview one year. They asked him who he was rooting for, and he was like, oh, I'm just rooting for a good game. If there was a Texas team in it, I'd root for them. I wish the Cowboys were in it, and I wish the Texans were in it, but I'm just rooting for a good game. I'm like, okay. But, again, I got no dog in the fight. Edmonton versus Florida. I was just rooting for a good game on Tuesday night. I think I'm rooting for Edmonton. I don't know why.
There are some weird dynamics in this as far as, Bobrovsky, the goalie for Florida, very streaky. He's been kind of streaky all year.
He's been streaky in his entire career.
So started out the series on fire, has kind of cooled off since then. As far as high-end talent, you probably give it, to Edmonton with McDavid and Draisaitl. And when those guys get rolling, I think there's just a confidence level that's hey, we have the best players, and the pressure started to mount on Florida. And Florida's never really won anything either. They haven't proven that they can close out the Cup. So a lot of factors going into how the momentum could shift here.
It absolutely felt like being in that dressing room. 80% of the questions they asked are about McDavid. It's like, here's Ekholm. They're like, so what's it like, with the greatest player? And Matthias is like, that's good. He's a great player. And just watching what he does night in and night out, there was a vibe in that room of hey, he's got him. Like that old Patriot vibe. Ty Law and Rodney Harrison are talking about a potential overtime in the Carolina Super Bowl, the second one that the Patriots were in. And Rodney Harrison starts talking to Ty Law, and Ty Law goes, it's not going to overtime. And Rodney goes, what? It's a tied game in the fourth quarter. He goes, yeah, but we got Tom Brady. And Brady goes right down the field, and Vinatieri kicks a field goal, and they win. That was oh, hey, Connor's going to figure it out one way or another. Let me also say this about the Edmonton-Florida series. Did anybody else see that goal taken off the board the other night and thought that was shady? Like, I'm
The Florida
watching
goal
the game.
taken off?
Yes.
It looked
That
pretty
was
close.
shady.
I mean, they must have seen something super
Did you
definitive.
see something?
No, not really.
So it's 2-1. Florida scores right after Edmonton, scores the second goal. And I'm like, okay, get some popcorn. We got a game. And Edmonton challenges. And when a coach challenges that quickly, especially in that situation, if it's 3-1, it's different. But because it's 2-1 and you're going to put them on the power play, if you get it wrong, they could immediately score, and now it's 2-2. I'm like, okay, this must just be egregious. Then I'm looking at the replays, and I see the replays, and I'm like, I don't see a replay that makes me – I didn't even see a replay that made me think that it was more likely than not that it was offside. And what they always tell us about video review is it has to be absolutely conclusive. So I'm watching the game thinking, Chris Knobloch, you idiot. Like, are you stupid? Like, you are going to challenge this, lose it, and they're going to be on the power play, and now your 2-goal lead in the span of 30 seconds is gone. And they came out and they said no goal, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And the reason I say it's shady is because it reminded me of that playoff game a couple years ago in the NFL when Buffalo played Cincinnati and Josh Allen fumbled the ball the same way Josh Dobbs fumbled it with the Titans, and they went and reviewed it, and it's like if Cincinnati gets the ball, it's over, but if Buffalo gets the ball, they're still probably going to lose, but there's a chance. And they said incomplete pass. And I'm thinking, okay, here's the NHL making the call on this review. And if Florida scores this goal, we are more likely to not have a Game 7. I'm just saying it felt shady. I'm not saying it was. But I didn't see an angle on that goal that made me think there was any chance that they'd overturn it. And they did. And so that, I could not believe that. 615-737-1025 is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Stephen A. Smith made a big deal about something today that while I think a lot of people may just roll their eyes and just say, oh, it's Stephen A. Smith's showmanship, I actually think it's a pretty big deal. I actually think it's a big deal for the game. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
I want to say this as I want to reiterate what Shannon said off the top of the show. You talk about breaking news. Put all of us up on that camera right now, please. You talk about breaking news. Look at this. 3 black dudes talking hockey. On national television.
Let's go.
Only in America, baby. Only in America, baby. Only in America. That's all I'm talking about.
There you go. That was Stephen A. this morning. And Stephen A. was all in on Game 7. And he says right there, it's him, Shannon Sharp, PK Subban, and Molly Karam's the host. And he's like, look at all of us. 3 black dudes talking about hockey. And I know he was making a joke. I know that was kind of the showmanship of Stephen A. Smith. Just like, Ian, if you could, at the top of First Take, Stephen A. was all in on Game 7. You know, I mean, it was, as somebody that knows that they never talk about hockey, I was actually kind of shocked.
Guess who's about to do that hockey, bro? It's us. It's us, baby. And guess what, Shay? Your boy is in Florida. I'm going to Game 7. I don't know a damn thing. I don't know a damn thing about hockey, but other than the fact that the puck is black. But damn it, everybody in the world is talking about hockey today. So that's what we gonna do. Shay's back in the house. Your boy is back in the house. PK Subban is back in the house. And Commissioner Gary Bettman is coming into the house. Holla at your boys. Game 7. Whoa! Let's go.
Okay. All of that is for show, as was the first cut. And yet I actually think that's really good for the game. I really think it's good for the game. I think it's good for the game that Stephen A. is telling people, I don't know anything about hockey. I know the puck's black. That's all I know. But I'm going to Game 7 because I'm the man. I'm Stephen A. I'm already in Miami, so I'm going to Game 7, and I'm going to have a blast. And then when Stephen A. has a blast, and he does First Take tomorrow, he's going to be sitting there talking about how electric the building was, or how, I mean, my experience at Game 5 was it was electric for the starting lineups and the anthems. You know, Oh Canada is actually, I mean, I love America, but Oh Canada I think might actually be a better song. But it was electric. Then Edmonton scored that shorty, and it was like you could feel them just suck the energy out of the building. And then when Edmonton scored to make it 4-1, it was like, oh my God, it's a funeral in here. If Stephen A. has that kind of experience where, you know, he sees the electricity in the building and the fans are fired up and then all of a sudden, you know, it's either it explodes because Florida takes the lead and wins, or he's going to talk about that all tomorrow morning on ESPN's most popular show. That's important. The thing I've always told people when I got here, and this was pre-2017, before people got on the bandwagon and everything else, I was told, not by somebody that worked here, but just it was the sentiment inside the market, you can't get ratings talking about hockey on the radio. Now, we, and I'm not just talking about me, but our entire station has proven you can get ratings talking about hockey on the radio in Nashville. But that was kind of the sentiment. And yet, I never looked at it and said like, oh man, I can't talk about hockey and nobody cares about hockey, and because I didn't believe that. And because I knew that if we, you know, consistently talked about it and then good things happened, people would know, hey, that's where you go to get the good info. Where did Barry Trotz go today to spill all the tea? This show. And I look at Stephen A. and First Take and how popular that show is. And like somebody said this to me a couple of months ago when ESPN paid all that money to keep basketball. And they said the NBA needs ESPN more than ESPN needs the NBA, because you turn on the TV, they talk basketball ad nauseum. The ratings for basketball keep going down. I never see them talk baseball unless it's like Shohei Ohtani's interpreter gambling millions of dollars. I never see them talk about baseball the way that they talk about basketball. If you look at the TV ratings, there's really not much of a difference between baseball and basketball. If you had to ask me what's more popular in America, I'd argue baseball is more popular because anything can happen in baseball, whereas basketball, there's like 3 teams that can win the championship. So as they pump the NBA up so much, and I'm thinking as a hockey fan, it'd be nice for them to pump up the NHL a little bit. And this is a big game. You know, I felt bad for hockey, and I never say that the leagues should alter the results, ever. You know, then you're wrestling if you start doing that. But they should never alter the results to get Kentucky into the Final Four, to get Dallas into the Super Bowl, to get the Yankees into the World Series. The Yankees haven't been in the World Series in a long time. It'd be very nice for Fox's TV ratings if the Yankees got into the World Series. If the Yankees and the Braves get into the World Series, baseball's going to hit probably about 17, 18 million viewers. Right now, at their peak, they're hitting 14, 15. I mean, we're talking 18, 19 if the Yankees and the Braves are in, or the Yankees and the Cubs are in, or something like that. But you can't dictate these kind of matchups. You know, it's got to be the best of the best taking each other on. But when the Rangers lost in the Eastern Conference Final, I thought, damn, there goes an opportunity for the game. Because everybody who makes decisions about national programming in this country lives in New York City. So they think everybody cares about the things they care about. So it would have been wall-to-wall talking Rangers, especially with that bore of an NBA Finals that we had. That would have been huge. The Florida Panthers don't have that kind of juice. And still, I think because of where they fall on the calendar, basketball's over, nobody cares about the draft, I think that this is, you know, a big moment for hockey. And when Stephen A. Smith is up there bragging about going to the game and interviewing Gary Bettman and everything else, I think it's really good for the sport. When Shannon Sharp and PK Subban are sitting there talking about hockey, I think it's really good for the sport to say, hey, you know, this isn't just a white person sport. I think it's great. I think tonight's great. I want as many people to watch hockey as possible so I can talk about it more on the radio, more here, more on Sirius, because I love the NHL. Now, again, how much do I love it? I watched the Tom Brady roast over Game 7 between Dallas and Vegas. But I love it enough to go an hour to go watch it and an hour coming back in Florida last week. I want more people to love the sport the way I love the sport. And so it's not a small thing with ESPN going all in on this. It's not. McAfee talked about it on his show today. 615-737-1025 is our phone number here on the show. One texter says, you've said some atrocious things, and I tend to agree with you more now than I used to, but there's no way "O Canada" is a better national anthem. Add that to the list of atrocious things. Yes, huge game. Can't wait. Hoping 5-4 either way. Who wins doesn't matter. We all win at 5-4. Ian, I'm just saying, lyrically,
you like it better?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you like "O Canada" better than the Star Spangled Banner? Obviously, I love my country more than I love Canada, though I do love Canada. Although I've heard some things about taxes and interest rates that I'm not sure I love so much about Canada. But I do love Canada. But
I do like the "O Canada" song. I don't know if I like it
the song
any more particular than the Star Spangled Banner.
I don't think the Star Spangled Banner is a good song. I mean, I love what it stands for. Don't cancel me. But, it's okay.
They're fine.
615-737-1025 is the phone number. We got Game 7 tonight. And we've got the Baseball National Championship, Tennessee and Texas A&M. And I am convinced that only 3 fan bases care about the outcome tonight. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Terry in Nashville, Ian Texan, says, I don't watch hockey, but that, I don't know what that was, but he says, that got me ready to watch. I'm telling you, tonight's a night for the NHL. And the one bad thing, the one thing that drives me crazy, which I am going to go crazy about at some point today, is the fact that ESPN scheduled baseball and hockey for the same night. Tonight is the national championship game for baseball, Tennessee versus A&M. Why are we not playing baseball tomorrow night? Somebody help me out here.
Can you do that?
Yeah. Why
Just
not?
move them? Skip a day?
Sure.
Has that ever happened in the College World Series? Don't they usually play bam, 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 1, 2, 3?
Well, extenuating circumstances. What if it rains tonight? What are you going to do?
Well, can't do anything about that.
Okay, so if it rains tonight, you can play tomorrow, right?
Sure.
Okay, move the game to tomorrow. That's what I would have done. But there are 3 fan bases that I think are all in tonight. Everybody else can be watching hockey. And I'm telling you, this is the first meaningful championship Tennessee can win since Pat Summitt's final title in 2008 when they had Candace Parker and they won that final title. And honestly, I think more people focus, the bigger story about that championship was about what Don Imus said about the Rutgers team the next morning than it was actually about Tennessee winning the title. Because back then, women's basketball and baseball, I don't think had as much juice as they have now. If Tennessee won a championship in women's basketball, those Tennessee fans would be going nuts. The same way they're going to be going nuts one way or another today. I do think, though, that there are 3 fan bases that care tonight. Tennessee's fan base cares because they're in it. And again, Tennessee's fan base, they're chugging Jell-O shots left and right. Joe said, and again, Joe is not a reliable narrator when it comes to determining stadium composition, but Joe did say he thinks it's 70% Tennessee fans right now in Omaha. So, of course, they care. A&M fans care because, again, A&M in a lot of ways is like Tennessee. They're not as obnoxious, but they're probably a little bit more spoiled because A&M has more money than anybody. They spend as much money, if not more money, on coaches and NIL and everything else. And unlike Texas, who occasionally wins stuff, or the other teams in the SEC that A&M competes with, they don't ever win anything. And so it's kind of like A&M is sitting there watching LSU win a women's basketball title, LSU win a baseball championship, Ole Miss win a baseball championship, Mississippi State win a baseball championship, Alabama win a football championship, and they're like, what about us? So obviously they care. The third program that cares about tonight, Vanderbilt. Because if Tennessee wins tonight, they, in my opinion, pass Vanderbilt as the best program in the state. If they lose tonight, it stays with Vandy. As far as the future outlook is concerned, it's not close. Tennessee has a brighter future ahead. The recruiting rankings would say that. The fact that their coach is young and has adapted to NIL and uses the transfer portal, and Tim Corbin is kind of, it feels like, stuck in the mud a little bit. Now, he's changed the coaching staff up, but it kind of feels like they're stuck in the mud a little bit. The future certainly weighs in favor of Tennessee. The all-time series favors Tennessee. I know it's crazy because Vanderbilt has been good for the last 20 years, and Tennessee's been good for the last 5 years. But there was a time before Tim Corbin when Vandy sucked at baseball just as much as they suck at everything else. And when that happened, Tennessee had a better baseball program, the Roy Mewburn era. Tennessee had a better baseball program. So the all-time series, Tennessee. The future, Tennessee. But the one thing, the recent history, Tennessee. But the one thing Vandy has, and you cannot take this away from them, is they have 2 national championships. That matters. Again, NC State got to the Final Four this year. They're not a better program than Duke. Winning the national championship matters. But at the same time, if Tennessee wins it, other than the fact that Vandy has one board championship that came 10 years ago, there's really not much of an argument there. And I know Vanderbilt fans, again, Tennessee fans care, A&M fans care, and Vandy fans care. Because I have started to actually enjoy the For You tab on Twitter, where they find tweets of people that I don't follow, but they think that I would like. And yesterday, when Jaslav Yolette hit that home run for A&M, and A&M was up 1-0 in the first inning after they dominated on Saturday night, Vandy Twitter was popping the champagne corks the same way that Mercury Morris does every time the last NFL team loses a game every year to celebrate the 1972 Dolphins, the only undefeated team in the history of the NFL. They don't want anybody else to go undefeated. They don't want anybody to have a better record than them. Eric Dickerson came out years ago when Adrian Peterson was competing for his record, his single-season record, and he said, I don't want Adrian Peterson to get that record. He likes that record. Vandy fans know we've got 2 national titles. Until you get a national title, you don't belong in the discussion with us. Georgia's got a national title. LSU's got national titles. Mississippi State's got a title. Ole Miss got a title. South Carolina's got a couple of titles. Everybody's got titles in this league except you. You don't count. And it's going to kill Vanderbilt fans if Tennessee wins tonight. It's going to kill them. Like, they won't admit to it. They won't say it. But just watch their Twitters if Tennessee loses tonight. Again, they will be celebrating like Vandy won a national title. I really think if you were to talk to a Vandy fan and you were to say, what would you rather have? A 3rd national title for you or no national titles for UT? And I think they'd say no national titles for UT. They know. Vanderbilt fans are not stupid. They know that Tony Vitello has turned that program into a machine. They know that even though Texas fired their coach today, they know it's more likely than not that Tony Vitello's not going anywhere. Tennessee's going to pay him a fortune, and he right now is one of the leading coaches in college baseball when it comes to the way the game is played now, with NIL and transfer portal and everything else. And they know their coach isn't. And I know they lost their minds when that third base umpire did not ring up that check swing 2 Friday nights ago against Florida State. Because they are fearful that Tennessee is going to pass them. And I'm just going to tell you right now, if Tennessee wins tonight, they're going to pass them. Like, that's the demarcation. Okay, yeah, 2 titles to 1 title, but still, they got the title. They've got a better future. Their all-time record's better. Tennessee's going to be the better program tonight if they win. And baseball was the one thing over the years that Vandy had. It was the one thing that their fans had that they could say, hey, we might stink at football. We might stink at basketball. We used to be good, but we might stink now at women's basketball. Although Shea Ralph does have things, I think, headed in the right direction. But we've got baseball. That was their thing. And now they've lost in the regional 3 straight years. And Vitello keeps going to Omaha. But at least they can rejoice in the fact that, well, Tony can't win the big one. Well, if Tony wins tonight, you can't say that. And you're going to have to deal with every Tennessee fan. Again, nobody outside of the A&M, Tennessee, or Vandy fan bases really cares about this game tonight. I don't really care about this game tonight. My thing is I can't wait to see the fireworks of the just jubilation Tennessee fans are going to have because they haven't won anything in 30 years, or the just pure misery and the meltdown that will come with a loss. But most of the country doesn't care. If this were football, the country would care. But it's not. But it matters to Vandy. Like, it matters to Vandy. And so that, to me, makes it at least a little bit more exciting. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025 if you want to weigh in on this. We'll get to some of your phones at 615-737-1025. And then there's one other thought I had on this. Just one other, it's just something I thought about this morning when I was thinking about if Tennessee wins a championship and what it's going to be like and everything else. We'll do that coming up next here on the program. Let's talk Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love Hiller. They take great care of my home. They can do the exact same for you. Hiller has taken great care of my home for years. Let's let it continue. And let's face it, things often aren't as simple as they should be when it comes to maintaining your home. Well, this summer, Hiller is making it simple. With real-time technician tracking, you'll know exactly when they're on their way, and you can trust that they have the best and brightest techs in your home fixing your problem on their first trip out. From now until June 30th, enjoy a free service call with work performed or take $25 off any plumbing or electrical repair. And visit happyhiller.com today for details. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. Proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller, call the Happy Face Truck today.
Yeah, it was an SEC war or just a postseason war. And, in that situation, if you had your druthers, you'd like to have the last at-bat because, the ninth inning is going to be full of drama. But I think our kids kept their composure in that ninth inning, including Ariel in a real tough play. You don't want to see anyone get hurt there, but that was kind of a do-or-die deal where you couldn't shy away or you had to make a decision with what you were going to do. So that, to me, was kind of the theme of the day. I know it was an exciting win, maybe not the the sexiest or whatever you want to call it, but there was a lot of teammates taking care of teammates, a lot of coaches picking up players picking up coaches with decisions and things like that. And obviously it's easy because the score is what it is, but I just felt like we were more true to who we were today in pregame, in the dugout, during the game. And again, it's easy to say that because we end up doing okay on the scoreboard, but I'd rather go into battle with that group the way they showed up today and hope they do the same tomorrow.
Tony Vitello, the Tennessee head coach, again at the top of the hour. He's going for a national title. And if they win today, does he get a statue outside the stadium, Ian?
I think you probably have to win more than one.
Pat has a statue. Now, Pat won a crap load of championships.
Yeah, she's on their, next level. I don't think Tony's there yet, not to Pat's level.
I mean, I don't think Fulmer or Johnny Majors or, maybe General Nealon, they named the stadium after him. But I don't think that Fulmer, maybe they do, I don't know. You'd have to ask Chad, which, by the way, Chad has weighed in. I said again, there are 3 fan bases that really care tonight. A&M, Tennessee, and Vanderbilt.
Mm-hmm.
And Chad sent me a text and said, you are spot on. Vandy fans take more joy in Tennessee losing than their own team winning. It's pretty wild. Let me say this.
Do Texas fans care about this?
So somebody else texted me about Texas. And I said, Texas, there's no question who has the better baseball program. Even if A&M wins tonight, it's Texas. Doesn't Texas have like 10 national championships or something like that?
In baseball?
Yeah. I mean, you're going all the way back to like Roger Clemens when we're talking about Texas, which I actually do have a funny story about Roger Clemens at the College World Series 10 years ago when we kicked him out of a suite because he went into the wrong suite. But different discussion for a different day.
Sounds like maybe 6.
6. Well, okay, so you see what I'm saying? Like Vandy has 2, and there's a big difference between 6 and 2. I think Texas looks at A&M the same way that Kentucky looks at Louisville, which is like, yeah, we want them to lose, and we enjoy when they lose, but we're not obsessed with them losing. At Louisville, we're obsessed with Kentucky losing. I think it's the same way with Vandy and Tennessee. Chad says that Tennessee fans or Vandy fans take more joy in Tennessee losing. I grew up a Vanderbilt fan. And I always tell people that growing up a Vanderbilt fan, I would not consider myself a Vanderbilt fan now. But growing up a Vanderbilt fan, you know how in the South it's like, well, my daddy went to Auburn and my granddaddy went to Auburn and we watched the Tigers every week together and my granddaddy would have been so proud of the way them boys played today. Well, if you grew up a Vanderbilt fan in the 90s, it's kind of the opposite, right? No disrespect to Woody Woodenhofer, may he rest in peace, but those teams weren't very good. And so, as a Vanderbilt fan, we didn't watch Vanderbilt every week. Hell, you couldn't even get to Vandy games a lot of the weeks. We watched Tennessee every week. And we were rooting for Florida. And then we were rooting for LSU. And then we were rooting for Alabama. And then we were rooting for Auburn. It's just how it was. So I understand the sentiment, and it's okay. That's what rivalries are for. Now, here's the question. Here's what question's probably not the right way to say it. This is where I would love to be tonight. Could you imagine watching the game with Tim Corbin tonight? Do you think Tim Corbin's watching the game? Do you think Tim Corbin is watching Tennessee in the national championship game tonight and on every pitch, say that the ball's an inch off the plate? Oh, come on, that was right there. I think he is. Because while Tim Corbin, and we talk about statues, Tim Corbin's getting a statue at Vanderbilt no matter what. And I've always said Tim Corbin can go out on his own terms because I'm not convinced that they can find anybody better. But if Tennessee wins a national championship, the heat is on Tim Corbin. And his place as kind of the god of baseball in the state of Tennessee is gone if they win tonight. I would love to see. And look, Tim Corbin, and I don't know Tim Corbin, but Tim Corbin's the kind of guy I picture that could actually be above this. That could be like, hey, it's great for them, but I'm busy watching hitters for next year, how we can work on their swing rate and get that down so that we can, maybe that is that way. I doubt it, but maybe it is. It's kind of like, the big debate Thursday night? Could you imagine watching it with Barack Obama? Like you're sitting there watching the debate with Obama. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. I'm saying you're watching it, just seeing his reaction as he sits in his living room and watches that debate the same way we do. Having Tim Corbin watch that game the same way. I bet you Tim Corbin is watching that. I bet he's cheering so hard for A&M. He'll never admit to it. But I bet, because the heat is on him if Tennessee wins.
Well, the heat's already on. I mean, if you're a recruit right now, aren't the Vols the more attractive program?
Yes, but isn't Corbin, if he's got 2 titles and Tony's got none, isn't Corbin still the king?
He could still dangle that carrot, but
isn't it still Vitello can't win the big one and Corbin's got 2 and that kind of thing?
Maybe. I mean, that definitely would help in Corbin's argument, but as far as I don't know, it just feels like if I were a kid graduating, Tennessee is the more attractive program regardless of the national championships at this point. But I don't know, it definitely helps Corbin's argument for the Vols to be shut out.
You think Corbin's watching the game tonight?
Oh yeah.
You think Corbin's cheering for A&M?
Or
do you think he's watching it like the way I watched the hockey game
the other
night?
Yeah, he's probably doing, for him, it's probably like I don't know if scouting is the right word.
Oh, no.
But just like, I
bet Tim Corbin's dog cussing the TV today.
Maybe. I think it's more of just a curiosity thing for him, more so than
like he's just watching the game just to watch the game.
Yeah.
The way that we watch like a Buffalo-Baltimore NFL playoff game. We're all going to watch it. We're all going to sit there and watch it. But do we really care who wins? No, not really. You think that's Corbin's approach tonight?
I think it's just he knows so many of the people in the sports and on the coaching staff and the kids that I think it's probably hard for him to get too rooting. But maybe not.
I bet he's rooting.
Maybe I'm just being naive. But.
Again, maybe I'm just projecting my own feelings, like if I was Corbin, how I'd feel. But I think he's rooting against Tennessee. I bet he's rooting against Tennessee hard. James in Ashland City's up next. Our phone line's driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com. James, go ahead.
Hey, Jared. I hope you had a great vacation. Good to have you back. I just wanted to ask you this. You don't think it's possible that Tennessee and Vandy can both be good at the same time? I mean, there's enough talent out there for them to be good. I will say this before you answer that question, though. I will say this. If Tennessee does win tonight, it could, and I think it's already hurt Vanderbilt a little bit, the NIL situation. I think it's going to make it a lot more difficult for Corbs to get the talent that he got all through the early 2000s, the previous decade. If anything's going to hurt Vandy baseball, it's Tennessee having more assets with the NIL. What do you think about that? Now, hang up and listen.
So Joe has been on record saying that Vandy's got NIL money. And I know where the NIL money came from. Joe said it was a very rich sports family. That was all he would say. I think that's right. That's what he said, right, Ian?
I don't know for sure if he said sports family. I can't remember exactly what he said.
I think that's what he said. And we were all taking guesses as to who it was going to be. But Joe said, and I know who it is now, but Joe said they have NIL money. And apparently they've been getting a bunch of basketball players, so I'm guessing they have NIL money. If Vandy has NIL money, as much as they're going to try to help Clark Lee out, as much as they're going to try to help the new basketball coach out, if Vandy has NIL money and they can't get players that Tennessee can get because of the money, I promise you they're going to start funneling that money to baseball. Because, again, baseball is the one thing Vandy has. Now, as far as can't they both be good at the same time? Yes, but somebody has to be better than the other person. And that's why Tennessee's playing for the championship tonight. One texter, Jacob from Spring Hill, says, do you think that pro baseball would be more appealing to Tennessee residents with the college baseball attention that we're getting? I think the answer to that is no. I don't think anybody in Chicago, for instance, cares about college baseball, and I think they're doing okay as far as pro baseball is concerned. I think if we had Major League Baseball, I think we'd care about it because we know baseball around here, and quite frankly, because Everybody knows baseball. And the thing about baseball, I think, has been labeled unfairly. Baseball does fine as far as TV ratings are concerned. If you have a team, you care about your team. And we would care about our team here. One texter says, I bet Tim Corbin appreciates the Star-Spangled Banner. All I said was that Oh Canada is a better song. I don't know what he thinks about that.
The Vols are going to have a lot of these kids go pro. They have some good players now.
But have you noticed that, like, I don't think any of these kids for UT are very good in the pros yet. And, I mean, I looked at the draft list, and I don't think that they're having guys go number 1, number 2, number 3. I don't think they're in that vicinity. I looked at a mock draft the other day, trying to see who the Braves were going to draft, even though I have no idea who some of these kids are. The only ones I know are the ones that play locally, like a Jack Leiter. Well, I guess Jack falls into the other category too. Or the ones that are the sons of guys like Matt Holliday's kid, Andrew Jones' kid, so on and so forth. More of your phones, 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Plus, I have a serious bone to pick, and I will pick that bone next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game. Stillman and Company. So today we got, tonight, in 30 minutes, we have the College Baseball National Championship. Then at 7:17, I believe that's when they're going to drop the puck tonight, Ian. 7:17.
Something like that, 7:19, 7:17. Yeah, it's usually about 20 minutes after the top of the hour.
Didn't you always tell me that it's always like 7 minutes after?
Usually, yeah, at the top of the hour. For a regular home game, it's probably like 7:08. Something like that. On a regular, just weekday home game.
So I'm going to say 7:17, which the way that college baseball works, that means that we'll be in the second inning when we drop the puck. And I just got to say this. I got a bone to pick. I got to get it off my chest, and then we get back to your phones. The bone that I have to pick is how stupid could ESPN be that they allow Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final to be at the exact same time as Game 3 of the College World Series Finals. How does that happen?
How much control do you think they have over that?
100% control.
If the NHL is like, hey, we get the extra day, they need the extra day because of the long travel, so it's not every other.
That was set before, I think, the matchup, though.
So, with the Cup Final, it's just, what can you do about that?
But again, I don't think they added the extra day of travel because of Edmonton, Florida. I think that was set before the Cup Final.
Okay.
Like, I think that the Cup Final schedule is set ahead of time, and it's like, hey, these are the dates we're playing. Tell Madonna that she's not welcome for a concert that night. I don't care if you're going to make it or not. She's not welcome.
So you just want to tell the College World Series, sorry
Yes.
about your luck, push it back a day?
So here's what I would have done. So Friday night, we knew on Friday night that there was going to be a Game 7 on Monday. At that point, ESPN has got to tell the NCAA, hey, we're going on Tuesday. So forget about Monday. We're going to play Saturday. We're going to play Sunday. There may not be a Monday, but there will not be a third game on Monday. We're going to play it on Tuesday. I told you, what if it rains tonight? Then they're going to play tomorrow. That's what I would do. And the reason I would do it is because if I'm ESPN, I want one standalone premium on each night. And while, again, college baseball does not move the needle to the level of an NBA Finals game or a Stanley Cup final, last year the final did about 3.5 million viewers with LSU and Wake Forest. That is not a cheapie. Like, I understand that that's not Caitlin Clark, but that's not bad. The NBA just doubled their revenues, and they get about 1 million viewers a game for a national broadcast. We're talking about 3.5 last year for LSU and Wake Forest, and nobody is turning on the TV for Wake Forest. So whoever at ESPN scheduled Game 7 and Game 3 of the College World Series on the same day is truly a moron. I just saw that the NBA TV ratings tanked for the entire playoffs, and yet, as I said, their U.S. TV deals have skyrocketed, double what they were making before. The only real value in all of this stuff are the games. That's it. None of us have jobs. Whether it's me, Stephen A. Smith, whoever, none of us have jobs if they're not built around the games. If we don't have the Predators, if we don't have Vanderbilt, if we don't have the Sounds, if we don't have MTSU, if we don't have those, we don't have a station. As good as I think I can be sometimes, we don't have a station. 2 winner-take-all games. Again, Caitlin Clark, I really have been thinking about this. I think Caitlin Clark is probably worth $200 million to the WNBA because of all of the 1 million plus viewer performances she gives them. What she's going to give them if she makes the playoffs, albeit it'll be during football season, so that won't be great. But again, this is premium stuff. And tonight we have 2 winner-take-all games. I think they both draw casual viewers, especially in the NHL with a player of Connor McDavid's caliber. So how in the world did ESPN schedule it so that both games are on the same time, the same day? And I have an answer for you. Idiocy. That's how it happened. The same way that they let Colin Cowherd go to Fox and it's blown up their radio network is the exact same way that they let these two games happen on the same day. It is unthinkable to me that they would do this. And I hate it because I think that more people here locally probably care about the baseball game, but I think it might actually kind of be a wash. I want to watch the hockey game tonight, and I want to watch the hockey game untethered. You know, I was texting Robbie about this today, and Robbie was like, well, you know, today's a 2-screen day. No, I want to watch one screen. I want to watch hockey. And instead, I'm going to have to do the 2-screen thing. It's going to suck. Let's go to Rob, who's up next and has been waiting patiently here on the program. Thank you for calling. What's up, Rob?
Hey, guys. Love your show. I normally think you all are spot on, but I think you missed something. And it's this. Vanderbilt has more than double the amount of players in Major League Baseball than UT does. And I think that both parents and kids know that, and that, you know, even if UT ends up winning tonight, that's something that's awful important to them. And I'm
so then why does
UT
have a better recruiting class?
I mean, the results matter is my answer to that. I mean, lots of, like in football, lots of teams have better recruiting classes, but that doesn't necessarily translate to going to the league. I mean, it's the same thing. Like, that's just ratings. That's what people's beliefs are as to how good people are. But, you know, results matter.
So your point is that, like, if you were a parent or you were a kid, you would look at the pro players that Vanderbilt's putting into the league, and thus you would value Vanderbilt over Tennessee. But then at the same time, you're saying that Tennessee has a better recruiting class because they win more games now?
That's right. They do win more. They won more games this year and maybe last year. But traditionally, I mean, in my opinion, that's an anomaly. I mean, we've, 18 years in a row of going to the NCAA's record in SEC.
Yeah, but 3 years in a row of losing in the regional, and Tennessee has gone to Omaha 2 out of those 3 years, and the year they didn't, they were the best team in the country.
Oh, that's absolutely true, but still, again, more than twice the amount of guys in the big.
That argument only matters to me if you end up getting better players because of it. Like, I think Nick Saban gets great players at Alabama because all of these Alabama players are like, hell, I want to be like Derrick Henry. I want to be like Dante Hightower. I want to be like this guy. I want to be like that guy. They all think that. And so that's why they go in large part to Alabama. So I think that helps Alabama. The problem is Vanderbilt hasn't been recruiting at all lately, and Tennessee has. So it doesn't matter. Who cares who's in the big leagues? Who cares where they went to college? I don't even know where half the guys in the Braves went to college. What do I care?
You care if you're a parent of the kid who's going to college.
No, because they're sending their kids to UT. That's the point.
No. Some of them are. Absolutely, some of them are.
The problem, Rob, thank you for your call. The problem with Vandy is that whether it's NIL, transfer portal, or the fact that Vitello gets the common kid now that in terms of like the personalities that Corbin doesn't, whatever reason it is, and I don't know it well enough to tell you which reason it is, for whatever reason it is, Corbin is not getting the players that he's been getting in the past. Where is Kumar Rocker on Vanderbilt's team this year? He doesn't exist. Where is Pedro Alvarez? I mean, where are the good players? Where's J.J. Bleday? He's not on this team.
But it shows that they can develop players and get them into the league.
And that's great if people decided to go there because of that, but they're not. They're going to UT.
Maybe some of them.
It's indisputable because UT has the better recruiting class. UT, for the last 4 years, has had better players. And at one point, Vandy had great players and was competing with UT, and now they're not. The idea of, well, we have more pro players, who cares? For the last 20 years, Michigan football has been just a wasteland of what could have been. All the while of those 20 years, they had the greatest quarterback of all time, winning championship after championship. Michigan doesn't win anything off of that. Why? Because Brady Hoke was the coach. That's why. I mean, again, the Michigan players, They went to go play for Harbaugh that won a championship. They didn't go play there because Tom Brady played there. So I have a hard time with that. Texture says it'll be a fun day on Vol Twitter when Tony Vitello goes back to Fayetteville to replace Dave Van Horn when he retires. Vitello is the only reason Tennessee is relevant. Yes, but I don't think he's going. I think Tony Vitello is – I think that every time one of these jobs comes open, Tony Vitello will get more money. And there is not a number that somebody else will be willing to pay that Tennessee won't. So every time Texas right now came open today, we'll give you $4 million. Tennessee says we'll give you $4 million. The only way he leaves is if he wants to go somewhere else. And I just don't understand why he could possibly want to go anywhere else. Texter says, we keep talking about how UT has become very good in the last 5 years, and baseball, unlike any sport, takes time to get to the big leagues, so they shouldn't technically have any studs in the big leagues yet. Maybe, but the Atlanta Braves have gotten 2 starts this year from Hurston Waldrop, who was the ace last year for the Florida Gators, and he's already in the big leagues. Paul Skeens, who was the best player in college baseball last year, is already in the big leagues. I believe Paul Skeens had like 8 strikeouts yesterday for the Pittsburgh Pirates. So if you're good and you come from college, you get to the pros pretty quickly. Where is Drew Gilbert? And the other one that flipped the bird all the time. Where are they at?
I think they're in the minor somewhere.
What happened? Who was the guy? I mean, I obviously don't follow this stuff like as closely as Robbie and Joe that'll sit there and like break down the bullpen, which on a day like today is useful. All the other days, it's really not. But I thought Drew Beam, the guy that pitched yesterday, I thought Drew Beam was the guy that threw like 108 and got drafted a couple years ago. Clearly he's not, but Ian, you know who I'm talking about, the big tall kid Tennessee had that literally threw like 106. What happened to that guy?
I'm not sure.
And what was that guy's name?
I'm not sure.
And why is that guy not in the big leagues? And let me say this. That A&M pitcher yesterday, Cortez, the one that was – now, he may have to have Tommy John after they pitched him like 90 pitches yesterday.
Sounds like he's got some big league stuff.
Well, he was – I don't know if you saw that. He was walking off the mound yesterday shaking his hand, and I was like, oh, no.
No,
oh,
I didn't see that, but I was kind of half watching, mostly listening to the TV broadcast without watching it. It sounded like he was throwing some gas, though.
Oh, gas. Like an easy 101 with movement. He couldn't control it worth a crap, but that doesn't matter. Like, he was so effectively wild.
Is it Chase Dolander? Is that who you're referring to?
No, I think he was a starter.
Yeah, he was taken 9 overall by the Rockies.
Poor kid. I'd never want my kid. Ben Joyce. That's it. Texter says Ben Joyce. Yes, that's it. That kid threw like 115. Why is he not, Mariano Rivera? Apparently he's in the big leagues with the Angels. Boy, that's where people go to die. And I say that my best friend, one of my best friends from college, played for the Angels. 615-737-1025. All right, I got a bunch of predictions to make because we got a bunch of games today. I'm going to throw it all out there. We'll do that coming up next here on the program. If you want to weigh in, that's 615-737-1025. And I feel very good about these, which we will get to. Hey, let's talk Window Nation. I love Window Nation. I find Window Nation, I love telling people about Window Nation because I know it's an honest company you can trust. I had Window Nation come out to my home, and I said, hey, take a look at my windows, tell me what needs replacing, and I'll buy it, and we're on our way. And they looked at my windows and said, you don't need to replace your windows. I said, so you came all the way out here to take a look at my windows, to sell me windows, and you're not jumping at the opportunity to make me buy windows. They said, yeah. I said, wow. That's how strongly I feel about Window Nation and the honest work you get out of them. That said, you also get a great deal because right now it's still their semi-annual sale through June 30th, so you don't have a lot of time to get in there. But you can get 50% off all windows along with no interest for 5 years, plus a 10% bonus savings when you schedule an estimate. And again, that's 50% off all windows, no interest for 5 years, 10% savings extra with an estimate. Call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com. Offer ends June 30th. So you've only got a week. That's 866-90-NATION, windownation.com.
They haven't stopped believing. And this series gets dragged back to South Florida for a winner-take-all Stanley Cup Finals Game 7.
You know, you can't kind of ride the wave or the roller coaster. It's, you know, we really haven't done anything yet. You know, we've won 3 big games to get ourselves back into the series, and you know, it comes down to one game here, and we'll be ready, and we're looking forward to that. It's a great opportunity.
That was Connor McDavid, the greatest player right now in the world. Game 7 in about an hour and a half. College baseball, Tennessee goes for the championship in about 9 minutes. Unbelievable. And our hockey coverage starts at 7 right here on 102.5 The Game. So I've got predictions to make. So let's start right at the top. Number 1, my first prediction. In fact, Ian, let's get the numbers on this one. I'll start it off, though, with number 1. Number 1 prediction for tonight. Edmonton wins Game 7. I do not believe in momentum in a hockey series. Again, the Predators lost Game 4 to Vancouver in the most heartbreaking fashion possible, and they went to Vancouver in Game 5 after that long flight, and they beat them. And then they came back here, and they lost. So, again, it's all about the individual game, but still, I'm taking Edmonton because Tuesday night, Game 5, I went into the Edmonton dressing room after the game was over, and the vibe that I felt was like this team's going to win the Cup. So I am picking Edmonton tonight just based off of the vibe. Give me Edmonton. That's my first prediction.
Number 2.
Connor McDavid's going crazy tonight. 3 points for McDavid. Put it down. And I think he easily wins the Conn Smythe. I think the McDavid wins the Conn Smythe even if they lose today. Who could you give it to on Florida? I think it's going to be McDavid who wins it. And I think because they win, it'll be McDavid who gets it. 3 points tonight. Maybe doesn't even score a goal, but he'll have 3 points tonight for Connor McDavid. That's number 2.
Number 3.
Tennessee wins the national championship in baseball tonight. I mean, the pitcher that they're throwing, this Seacrest or whatever, this guy's been unbelievable in the NCAA tournament as their third starter. I think he's got the juice. I heard Joe talking about his personality, basically saying that, hey, he's loose and, not rigid and it's not going to be too big for him. And I think that Tennessee is going to get on the board first tonight. And I think A&M is going to play tense. And I think A&M, they're going to be without that kid Cortez that was throwing 101 easily yesterday. Tennessee wins the baseball championship today. Vanderbilt fans will not be very happy about that.
Number 4.
Tony Vitello will say or do something classless either during or after the game. Now, I don't think Vitello is classless, but I think Vitello has his moments. I think his team 2 years ago absolutely was classless. This team has their moments. Like yesterday when Christian Moore got walked and started talking trash to the pitcher. Like, dude, you got walked. Like, it's not like you hit a grand slam. You got walked. But again, those are the players. I'm talking about today. Tony Vitello's going to do something that is insanely classless tonight. Like, I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know if he's going to throw somebody under the bus. I don't know if he's going to, I don't know. But that's a prediction for tonight.
Number 5.
TV ratings for the Cup Finals will be the highest this century. They will top the 8.7 million viewers for the Blues-Bruins contest in 2019, which was a Game 7. And I think that they will surpass 10 million viewers tonight, which was last done in the NHL on May 11th, 1972, for a Bruins-Rangers Game 6 on CBS. Again, I wasn't born for another 17 years, but hockey was on CBS. 10 million for the Cup final tonight.
Number 6.
Baseball does not hit the 3.58 million viewers they got last year for LSU Wake because, again, I think the audience is going to be fractured due to hockey. And so I think that I'll put it at 2.95 million viewers. They will not get to 3 million viewers, but it's not their fault. It's because it's idiotically placed on the same day as Game 7 of the Cup final.
Number 7.
The final one. Tomorrow morning, Jim Schlossnagle, the head coach at Texas A&M, will be the next coach at Texas, not Tony Vitello. So Tony Vitello will get a contract extension tomorrow after he wins a national championship and says or does something classless, not the Texas job. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't know which games you're choosing to watch tonight. If you're going to watch them both, if you're going to pick one or the other, I don't know, but enjoy it. Because this is kind of the last big day of sports until we start playing football. Stillman and Company. We'll see everybody tomorrow at 2. The Cats Brewhouse Blitz is next. Game 7 right here, 7 o'clock on 102.5, 106.3 The Game.